You are now watching Gravy Movies.
Gravy Movies Episode 2, greatest football movies of all time. We're dropping this, a few days ahead of the Super Bowl? 2-3 days ahead of the Super Bowl. Our first guest for the third iteration of the podcast is my friend, Zac Bell, AKA Z-Bot, host of The Smoke Break on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. What is up, my friend?
What's up, fellas? Super Bowl week. Bills are eliminated. So it's time to watch some movies and fill the void that I've been left with the lack of football that I have to endure for the next several months. But I know this is your guys' football. What football is to me, movies is to you guys. So I'm very excited to kind of combine the two here.
No, I am too. This has been an idea we've been talking about for like over a year now at this point. You are in your shrine. You have become, honestly, like the Twitter king of Buffalo. You get like actual people looking forward to your show every week. You get people reaching out to you just to hear what you thought of the recent game or the news. I mean, like, how's it been? How's it been? Are you working for Buffalo Fanatics, or is it somebody you like collaborate with? What is kind of the process here? So,
the Buffalo Fanatics is the biggest fan-run, Bills-oriented community online. That's that big. We have well over 100,000 Instagram followers. We have 25,000 subscribers on YouTube, almost 50,000 on Twitter. I think nearing 100,000 on Facebook now. So to answer the second question there, as far as like how it's run or working, so it was started by my buddies Pierre and Rico, who I still currently work with, and my buddy Bobby. And it's just a handful of us guys. So the YouTube angle, which I think is probably where we're most, where like the personality is most reflected, because Instagram is mostly just, keeping up with the team and whatnot. Like our personality driven around the brand itself is our YouTube, and that is me, Rico, and Rev, and all three of us do a show weekly, and then we'll collaborate all the time and whatever. And then we have Bobby, who runs the Instagram, does a killer job. We have an entire blog team who writes articles every single day. We have specialists in everything from injuries to you name it. We have an entire writing team. And then Pierre, the kingpin, he's the head of it all. He's the founder. He does a little bit of everything, but his new claim to fame is that he is doing the game day reactions, which is hilarious. He'll watch the game live with people, and it's awesome. So all the boys are the best. Like, we have the coolest group of guys. Everybody is as in line as the next, where like no one thinks that they're doing it for anything bigger than the love of the Bills. And that's what we all share. Like, all of us are just massive fans who love the Bills, and that's what we reflect out. We don't pretend to know the X's and O's. We don't pretend to I won't be the guy to tell you, hey, coach should have drawn this up, or coach should have drafted this guy, because I don't know it. And I think where I relate most with my audience is that, frankly, like, a lot of that stuff is just, it's too nuanced to care. Like, even as much like someone like me, who is as big a fan of football as I am, like, that stuff is way too nitty gritty for me. So I leave that to the people who enjoy that and get into it, because they're much better at it than me. So we take the fan angle, and we absolutely love it. And then that, of course, incorporates the Twitter, which I just love, because the way the algorithm works on Twitter, if you like are involved with a certain topic enough, it will like literally just be that. So that's what that has become, where Twitter to me is essentially one gigantic group chat with every Buffalo Bills fan that has a Twitter, and we all just interact with each other. So it's been a lot of fun. I absolutely love it. And I always look forward to the next step with it, because we've grown substantially since I started. And I think that has a lot to do with the success of the Bills. So it's been a lot of fun for us to kind of watch our success grow as the Bills have gotten better as well, because as we know, it's taken a while to get there, and we still haven't gotten over the hump. But hopefully, when we do get over the hump, the Bills, I say we all the time, I'm talking about the Bills. When we, as in the Bills, get over the hump, I think we will continue to shoot to new heights too. So it's a lot of fun to be a part of.
Well, it's cool.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna stop betting on the Bills to win the Super Bowl, because I've done that for the last 3 years in a row preseason. And I think I might be what's holding him back. So next year, I'm going to save my money, and hopefully you guys can pull it off.
Well, there's a couple problems with it, right, Mike? One is it's never happened, and it's a surefire way to just pour kerosene over money and light it on fire.
Yeah.
Two, they're so good now, at least in the regular season, like the value on the bet isn't even worth it anymore. Going into next season already, you know, if you bet 100, you'd win $650. They're the third highest favorite.
I think a few years ago I had him at like plus 1,200 and felt really good about it. But I feel your pain. I'm a Vikings fan, so I do feel the pain of never winning.
Well, I'll tell you what though, Vikings Bills was the game of the year, and you got us on that. You got us in that one. That chewed me up and spit me out. That game was wild. It sucks for the Vikings though, because I think more so than the Bills this season, they won a certain way every week where it dragged you. Like it literally toyed with your emotions, and they won every single one, and then to kind of go out the way they did. It's tough. That's the
long season.
The trial and tribulations, man. You go 17 weeks of watching a team just for it all to end in one. That's the worst part of it.
Very true. Very true. Always next year. Been saying that for 20.
Oh my God, I was born with that. I was born with that mindset.
Yeah.
I was born like when this coming year starts, just look forward to next season. That's just the way you should be. You might as well just get it over with. Get that mindset planted in Indian now, so that way you can avoid disappointment. But then they win and they win and they win, and then that fades, right? And then it immediately comes crashing back to the forefront when the season ends. It's the worst. Like, you know how I felt when I walked back into this room after that loss? I did an interview yesterday with a guy from the Action Network, which is a really big gambling website. And we did a Super Bowl betting preview. And he told me that at the end of the year, he's got a mug that he drinks every day, his coffee out of. It's a Bills mug. And when the Bills season ends, he cleans the mug and puts it in his basement and doesn't touch it again until the season because he doesn't want to look at it. And I'm looking around my environment here, and I'm like, dude, I got a wall full of mugs here. I can't just take it down. So I got to just sit here and wallow in my own sorrow until September. That's what I do every single year.
Sorry, we're putting you back in the room.
Oh, he lives in the room.
Oh, I live in the room. Oh. See, that's the thing. I live to be a Bills fan too. That's the thing. I live for the misery, but we all do. And that's what's the beauty about, like, when you were talking about, you know, what I do and stuff with the podcast and whatnot. That's what I love about it the most is, like, believe it or not, my viewership is infinitely higher when the Bills lose, especially if they lose a heartbreaker. And that's because we all have this collective trauma that we will all just get together with. And I will just sit and bitch about it for an hour. And while I'm bitching about it, people will be like, yeah. And then they'll be in the comment section bitching amongst each other. So it's one gigantic therapy session. And that's kind of the cool part about everything that I do. I love that part of it.
Well, yeah, the whole like community based organization of it, like you're not focusing on the, like, videos or content or whatever. It's all based around like what people are feeling and like why they're feeling that way, rather than like, oh, the Bills lost, here's why. No, the Bills lost, this is what we're feeling. It's a lot more relatable. It's a lot more interesting, especially to someone from me that's like not interested in that kind of like coverage of a sport or anything.
Yeah, and that's the best part about it.
Yeah, maybe we'll have, I guess, some of the same experience chatting through these films together, because I feel like there were very few diamonds in the rough, shall we say. I feel like when it comes to football movies, there's more duds, there's more losses than there are wins, in my opinion. But hopefully we can carve out the best ones here in the group.
It's going to be
the football
tough.
Genre was a NFL team, it'd be the Cleveland Browns. I mean, that is essentially what this is.
It's going to be tough. And I also think there's going to be a decent amount of compromise, because I think we're all only going to have a few movies we're really passionate about getting on the list. And the rest of it's going to be like, all right, we made our list of 4 or 5 movies that we actually like. What else should be associated with these good movies that aren't necessarily...
I think that's a fair point.
So Zach, I know you want to start with a movie I told you to watch. I was hammering this recommendation. I watched it for the first time last week as well. I think we all did. It's called Buffalo 66. It's from what year is it from? It is from
98.
98.
Trust me, I looked into it plenty.
It's written and directed by Vincent Gallo, which if you're a fan of film, you know is a controversial figure. But
I bet.
We're not really talking about him. We're talking about the movie, and I want to know what you thought of the movie, Zach.
Trying not to be hyperbolic here. I said this to Dom before we started today, before we hit the record button. I said, I've been sitting on this for 2 days. I said, I haven't messaged you once.
No,
I haven't. I really wanted to.
You've been total ghost.
I ghosted him.
So this reaction right now could go either way.
Well, I know Dom knows where it's going.
Okay. I'm waiting on bated breath.
Well, let me tell you what. It's all going to depend on how your personal feelings are as to how you align with this. But I got some things to say here. Okay.
Go ahead.
Dom, he sends me this list of all these football movies, and Dom being the movie buff that he is, of course, this list is the size of the Webster Dictionary. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, my God, I don't think there's enough hours in a day to watch these, let alone, how many of these are even worth watching. So Dom's sifting through them all, and he'll watch one and tell me what he thinks of it or whatever. Now, here's a quick backstory. So Dom and I, there's a lot of things that we like in a similar fashion. We both loved Better Call Saul. We watched that essentially together, just on separate sides of the country. And then we watched The Wire together in the exact same fashion. We both just absolutely loved it. But oftentimes when Dom says that he loves something, that more than often means I am going to absolutely hate it. And every time I seem to love something, he thinks it's just mediocre at best. So he texts me, or I'm looking at he says, watch Buffalo 66. And then he sends me his letterbox, and those are out of 5 stars, right?
Yeah.
And I see he's got this at a 4.5 star.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, okay. And I'm reading the description of it, and it doesn't even sound like a football movie. And he goes, well, in a roundabout way, it is. I go, okay. And then it hit me that I've been told about this movie in the past because it's about the Buffalo Bills to some extent. Let me break it down for you here as to what exactly this movie is and why I might argue it might be the worst piece of shit I have ever watched in my entire life. It might have been the worst bit of media. And I'm talking you anything. I mean, you could rank it up against anything. Let me give you the backstory here. And I won't even be able to give you spoilers because there's none to give you. There's no story here. It is, well, you want to know what the story is? The story is essentially a loser bets on the Bills to win the Super Bowl. And because he loses 10 grand, he goes and kills a fictional version of Scott Norwood, who missed the field goal against the New York Giants to win the Super Bowl back in the early 90s. The movie starts where the guy walks out of the prison, and you follow him around for 10 minutes as he just tries to take a piss.
Hilarious.
I'm not hilarious. I'm not even kidding you. It's a full 10 minutes of this guy meandering around town, doing nothing more than trying to find an adequate place to take a leak.
And I gotta say, once he takes the pee, it's too quick of a pee. He's been holding that pee for so long.
Takes the pee. Dom, he physically accosts a guy because he's staring at his cock. The guy won't even take a piss because the guy's looking at
clearly he didn't have to pee that bad.
Clearly, because in the middle of all this, he assaults a man and assaults a woman, then kidnaps a woman, and then decides it's time to take a piss. So you're like 20 minutes into this movie. Just basically the roundabout goal here is to get from point A to point B, which point A being, wow, this guy's coming out of prison. What did he do? To point B being, oh, wow, he finally took his piss. And now in the middle of all that, he wanders around town just trying to find a place to pee. He goes into the diner. Oh, sorry, restaurant's closed. He tries to go back into the prison. We can't let you back in here. It's a prison. And then he just stumbles into a dance studio. Goes to take a leak. There's a guy in the urinal next to him. The guy looks at his cock. He beats the shit out of this guy because the guy looks at him and he just goes, this was the best part of the movie, by the way. The guy looks at his cock and just goes, sorry, man, it's just so big. I mean, that was hilarious. At this point in the movie, I have no idea where this is going. Now he walks out of the bathroom and he requests from this girl this good-looking girl who you could tell, she's an outcast because they showed a 5-second clip of her in the dance class, and she's not in line with everybody the way they all are. You can tell there's something off, but there's something different about her, right? She's a different one, So he bumps into this girl.
I love this insight, by the way.
No, because
I want to hear a run through of all the movies you don't like. I want to hear a scene by scene breakdown of every movie you don't like.
This is like a over 48-hour pent up aggression. I have been waiting because I wanted to make sure I brought something different to this because I'm not I love like movies and TV, but not nearly like you guys. I wanted to make sure that if I had something stand out, that I was able to deliver it. And luckily for me, Dom, you served it up for me on a silver platter.
Well, now, I knew it would be controversial, but I thought you would kind of dig it.
Wait, hold on. We're not even close to me being done with this bitch sesh, okay? He walks out of the bathroom and he is just this guy's a loser, by the way. He's a
scumbag, yeah.
No, scumbag.
The whole family. The whole family. Yeah.
Well, except for the mother. Now the mother is
the mother's
no, she's got her
the
own.
The mother is a horrible mother.
We will get into why the mother is the resemblance of what you would want as a mother if you are a Buffalo Bills fan.
A mother that would kill you with your chocolate allergy.
A mother that would rather you die, never be born, than miss the Bills' only championship.
No, that
great. Was the best scene of the movie. She's explained. Hold on. Let's get there. Let's paint the picture of how we even get to this moment in time. So the guy's out of prison, and he goes to the urinal, right? And the fact that this was put on film is extraordinary. He goes out now. All of a sudden, oh, you know what? I don't have to take a leak anymore. Let me call my folks from the dance studio after I just beat this guy for staring at my penis. Now he asks this girl who walks by for a quarter, very rudely, and he doesn't even say thank you. Puts the quarter in.
He's going to borrow it, by the way. He plans to give it back.
That stood out to me too, Mike. Where I'm like, wait a minute. It's a quarter. You can't borrow a quarter. I mean, this guy doesn't have a pot to piss in. He just got out of prison, and he calls the parents for some reason. And then all of a sudden, I can see this is taking a twist. He's got this elaborate lie going. He's telling the parents, I'm in town, Mom, staying at the best hotel in town, which in Buffalo is like a DoubleTree. And he's staying at the best hotel in town. And he's a really important guy. And he's going to go see the parents. So what do you think happens next? Exactly what you'd expect. The girl he borrows the quarter from, he kidnaps her. Now, here is where it just gets to the point of like, I already knew I was going to hate this. He kidnaps her and she's just like, all right. She just goes along with it. He kidnaps her and drags her out of the dance studio to her car, and he can't drive stick. So they just get out of the car and switch seats, and she's like totally all about it. She doesn't care.
I don't know. At that point, that's a crazy situation to be in. I don't think she's just going along with it. This guy's totally unhinged.
Dude, he's got no weapon. They casually just switch seats. Okay, then Dom, how about this? When she finally pulls over for him to take the leak, she should have
just taken. Yeah, I had the same thought. She should have just gunned it.
There's something interesting about this guy to her, though.
Well, clearly we find that out. They love doing fun things together, like bowling.
She's obviously scared, and then she's interested, but it's while she meets the family where she totally understands why he is the way he is. Like from the get-go, the way the dad treats her, he's like, come to daddy. He keeps calling
God.
Daddy.
When she sat on his lap,
stuff. The singing part, how distracted the mother is. The mother doesn't even know who Billy is. He's like, hey mom, it's Billy. She's
it's
Billy.
Great.
Who's Billy?
It's great. She's all about the Bills, baby. Nothing else.
And that's why the movie is on the list, because between the mother, the way she is, the desperation to cling on to something special in a town that, no shots of Buffalo, that isn't special, that a town that kind of traps you there and that can depress you. So her focus, the fixation on the Bills, and then the whole thing with the bet, it kind of becomes to me like a really warped version of like Bad Lieutenant, or even like Uncut Gems at the end. Like the whole like wrecking with your decisions for a bet or gambling. It's like a really fucked up, dreamy uncut gems toward the end in a way. And I know you're going to give me shit for saying this, but just the way the movie looks and the music and everything, the scene.
I knew you'd love the terrible edit cuts where they just throw random pieces of footage at you.
Those are awesome. All the multi.
Yeah.
I knew you'd love that. I knew you'd love that.
Yeah.
All the multi-screen stuff is so interesting. I love the way.
See, I read it,
and how the movie starts with like Billy's day of birth and everything. Like before even the movie starts, it's really interesting.
I read this review, and this is no shot at you, even though it kind of is. I read this review, and I knew right then and there because I watched that part of it. I go, this is what Dom likes about this, and this is what I absolutely hate about it. But I read this comment on the movie, and it was like, this is a film for film students to sit and dissect, when in reality, it's just a legitimate piece of shit. And that is exactly how I felt. Because it's stuff like that you, who, like we were talking about earlier about Old, where you're like, well, it was shot so beautifully. And it's like, that appeals to you, right? Well, meanwhile, I'm sitting here and I'm like, wait, dude, how are we like even at this point? Because at this point in time where they really start doing this, he kidnaps the girl to go to the parents' house. And he keeps saying, you just make me look nice. And she does a killer job. And she makes him look like the coolest guy ever. The dad's a super weirdo. He's got her sitting on her lap, hugging her. And then she's like all about it. She wants him to sing her a song from the old band days. And instead of like, it kind of reminded me of like in Family Guy when they would do a Conway Twitty cutscene and it'd be the whole Conway Twitty song. The guy sang the entire song.
No, yeah, it's beautiful.
And then she's like, I want another. And he's like,
the spotlight on him. And
it becomes the stage.
I love that edit.
That's great. Yeah.
So I understand let me from just a visual though, you like that though, boys. But what did it have? What purpose did it serve?
So let me just say, because
what do you think, Mike? I don't even know what you thought.
I'm in between both of you. I did not outwardly hate it, but I did not nearly like love it as much as you did. I wouldn't give it 4.5 stars. Although when I was
4.5 stars,
when I was
that
watching
movie
it though.
Shook me.
When I was watching it, I knew exactly. I was like, this is a Dom film. It is right up his alley. I could spot it from a mile away. And yes, probably to the casual viewer, yeah, I could see why it's difficult to get it. It's a wacky premise from the get-go. There's a lot of things you're looking at, like, what's this guy's MO? Like, why is she so falling in love with him and just going along with this so easily? It's a very odd, it's not a mainstream film. It's very out there. That being said, I did find a lot of intrigue within the characters. I thought, that's what I enjoyed watching, was these very strange personalities between him, and particularly the mother and her passion for the Bills. I did love the visual style of it. And really the moment, I wasn't really hooked until the very end, but the moment that got me was when he walks into the strip club, that needle drop of Heart of the Sunrise. Like, I rewound it like 3 times to just keep watching that needle drop because it was so perfect. And I loved the edit of like him shooting him. And it was so cool. Funny too, because I watched it on, I think Tubi, and Tubi has commercials. And so he literally shoots him in the head. And then it cuts to like a commercial, to like a Verizon commercial, like this upbeat thing. And then I come back and it turns out he wasn't actually shot in the head. That was just like an imagination. But I love that edit. I love that sequence. And that is when the film really sunk in for me. And I did appreciate it. So I'm maybe like a 3.5 stars. I definitely, I think it was good. I enjoyed Vincent Gallo in it in particular.
He's a psycho, though. I was watching interviews with him afterwards. He is a real piece of shit.
I'm sure he is.
Seems like it.
Like,
but I will say,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
He was on Howard Stern, and Howard Stern's just like total like provocateur at this point. Yeah. And he's just like mentioning people that Vincent Gallo has had relationships with or has worked with, and Vincent Gallo is just like, oh, she's a fucking dirty bitch. And Angelica Houston, the mom in the movie, is brought up, and he just starts shaking his head and he goes, she's a miserable thing, that one. She's a
oh my god.
Everyone hates. He's a total monster. But yes,
why are we glossing over the glorious 20-minute bowling alley scene where we just randomly go bowling for no reason? And then she's doing a striptease on the bowling alley pole for no reason. Why are we at the bowling alley, Dom? Why are we at the bowling alley? What purpose does that serve? And then, hey, let's go to Denny's. And you know what? Let's not go to Denny's because we ran into some people that we know. And what do you say we call it a night and we get a motel room?
See, this
I mean, what the fuck?
This is you glossing over things. The woman they run into.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But what about the bowling alley, Dom?
Well, that's
what
like
was that?
Some films are more of an observation of a series of events or somebody's life. It's I think this film has a bit of like a realism style to it where it's not necessarily everything has to be super plot driven and it has to be boom, 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 one thing after the next. I think like that's the beauty of the film in a sense, is that you can just sit there and watch them sort of having idle conversation in a bowling alley. I think you learn a lot of things about the character in those scenes like that. You learn just by going to the bowling alley, you learn so much about his past, I feel like, in that particular moment. So I do see the worth of it. I will say my biggest point is I think we're spending a lot of time right now on a movie that is a borderline football movie at best.
Yeah, I just had
sure,
to get it off my chest because
there's a ton of stuff in there about the Bills, and the Bills play an important like plot device in this whole thing between him and his mother. But for the sake of like, if we're putting this on a list of greatest football movies of all time, then there's really an argument there to be had. So
all right,
right now I'm Dom, I know you're voting to put it on. There's no doubt in my mind.
It's going on the list.
Right now I'm voting borderline. And Z-Bot is a hard no.
No. Let me say this. I want it on the list because I want everybody to endure what I endured. I don't want to be the only one to have had to watch that.
Okay.
It needs to be on the list because clearly we got some differences in opinion. I like this. We got Dom who loves it. We got me who thought it couldn't have been worse. And then we got Mike dead down the middle. So anybody who sees this list, it's a perfect watch because you got three different perspectives and it's all going to depend on where you lie on it when you watch it. I think that's a cool thing about the movie. If we all sat here and shitted on it, it wouldn't be worth it. Or if we all loved it, I mean, yeah, it would be worth it because that's the whole thing here. But I think the cool thing about this is you got three completely different views here.
Okay, so it's a maybe.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's a maybe. I think it's fair to put it on there, Dom, if you want to.
I really want it on.
Okay, we got to see what other films, though. We have a lot of films to go through right now.
All right, one movie down, about 30 to go. Let's just start at the bottom now that we got Z-Bot's itch out of the way.
That's what that was, truly.
I'm just going to throw one out there. Gridiron Gang from 2006, the Rock movie, whether like convicts or they're like in juvie or something. And he has to coach the bad boys to be good.
It's just a ripoff of The Longest Yard. And
but way more serious and like without the humor.
It reminded me of there was this game when we were kids, NFL Blitz.
Blitz, yeah.
Yeah. And then they came out with NFL Blitz the League, and it was rated M, and you could do like hard drugs and you could buy strippers and stuff. It was insane.
Yeah, you went to clubs.
Gridiron Gang. Yes, that was like Gridiron, the adaptation of NFL Blitz the League. If Gridiron Gang was that, then Longest Yard would be like normal NFL Blitz, I guess you could say. It was kind of like like you said, the extreme version of it.
They just wanted to tack like a Grand Theft Auto style, like culture onto a football game.
Yeah, I mean, where are you guys at with The Rock though? See, that was like pre-Rock being a
not a fan of The Rock.
Yeah,
enough of The Rock. Stop filling my fucking movie theater with The Rock. You know, The Rock comes out with a new movie and the mall is like, you know what? We need to fill every theater with this. Just showtimes every half hour because apparently there's nothing else to put in the theater. So I am 2 thumbs down on The Rock.
Sometimes I think that a conspiracy theory that you could probably convince me of is people like The Rock. There's like 15 Rocks that are like somewhere doing something at all times. Like him, Kevin Hart. How is it possible? How are they able to pump out a movie, what seems to be every 3 weeks?
Because they're not good, because they're just pumping out garbage. They show up and they say their lines, but the movie around them is not a real movie. It's just like they're filming and editing it together. That's my problem with The Rock. The Rock is a giant person. Like The Rock has a crazy body. He has a crazy look. He could have been something like our generation's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Somebody huge, but
I think some would argue he is.
But Arnold made cool, interesting movies.
Yeah.
Arnold made funny movies. The Rock has made Disney movies and like the most generic action movie, like the skyscraper movie and all. Like,
yeah, I will say though, people love him. People adore The Rock.
I mean, he's the biggest movie star we have.
I mean, I like him as a guy. He seems like a really cool guy.
Oh, he seems like a fake ass. No, he seems like a robot.
Think so?
He seems like a robot. I've seen these videos where he's like interacting with fans and stuff. He's like,
I haven't seen those.
I'm here with who am I with? Bethany. Bethany's
but that's the thing though. When you're a guy like him though, like I'd love to see him behind the scenes. I mean, that's
he
a
seems
guy.
Like a nice guy, I will say.
He's probably
that's a
nice,
guy
but
who's
I don't
just
care
like,
about being nice. Who cares about being nice?
But when you're like someone like him, I feel like you have to become a caricature of yourself because you are like you have become like Mike was saying, you go to the movie theater now, you go tomorrow or you go next week, it's going to be The Rock. It's just whether or not what movie they're playing that week. I mean, that's what it's become. And I feel like he just has to be on all the time because he's got so many things out at once.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he's a brand. He's not a movie star. He's a brand. He has a drink. He has clothes. He has shit you can buy. He's
got that TV series somehow on ABC.
He's beyond just like wanting to be in cool movies and having people show up.
He took John Cena's blueprint and said, let's just do this like a million times more successfully. I mean, that's what he did. It's crazy.
Hard pass on John Cena too.
All right.
I don't know. Yeah, not for me either.
We can't go through all the wrestlers. We don't have time. All right, Little Giants.
Those are the only two I know.
Who's seen Little Giants?
I don't think so.
Heard of it. Heard it's great. Like the premise, but if I have to choose a movie like that I'm going to watch, you know, I will always favor, because to me, the movie that from what I've seen of it, it's like a football version of Kicking and Screaming almost.
Oh, so good.
And that's like my I love that movie.
You
want to
talk about a movie? There we go.
You're in good company here. You are in good company.
You want to talk about a movie that can just get by being sheerly hilarious with no shock value? That's Kicking and Screaming. PG, and it's as funny as any other movie. That's phenomenal.
That's one of my biggest compliments toward that movie is that it's PG.
Yes. You know, and two of those are like that for me. That one and Daddy Daycare. I think just are two phenomenal movies. Kicking and Screaming more specifically though. Just love it.
I can't tell you the last time I watched Daddy Daycare, but
dude, it was on the other day, and I mean some of the parts in it, like the random idea of just having that one guy who was dressed up as like a piece of corn in the beginning, and they just do that, and then and all of a sudden he becomes Flash and is like the kid's dad because he loves Flash. Hilarious. There's like no rhyme or reason to it, and it just works.
That's crazy. No, I can't put Little Giants on either because I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
I will say though, Dom, Little Giants. I've looked at some of these lists, these top tens. A lot of people like they got Little Giants in there for some reason.
No, I know people liked it, but I didn't rewatch it, so I can't stand
Me either.
All right, Little Giants not going on the list. Sorry, Danny, Little Giants stan out there. Another Rock movie, The Game Plan.
No, we're nope. Pass on The Rock.
This is probably even worse of a movie. Rather than like the fake prestige serious football movie, this is just a Disney movie about a big strong guy dealing with a little girl, and that's a dynamic that I don't really get involved.
Did you happen
with.
to stumble upon the similar landscape that they have going on Nickelodeon now, where the NFL player's daughter can control his movements through Madden on the real field?
Oh my God!
Yeah,
that's quite the premise.
Yeah, that's basically what that movie was. This just taking it to the they're incorporating the tech element that everything has now.
Of course, everything has to be a VR headset or controlled.
Yeah.
Leatherheads from 2008. It's a George Clooney movie with George Clooney and John Krasinski. I think they're fighting over a girl or something. They're on like an old football team. I've seen this when I was a child again, but
really, like John Krasinski from The Office.
Yeah, so this is when he was able to this is pre him going full movie star. This is like while The Office is still on.
Is it any good? That sounds weird. George Clooney and John Krasinski in a football movie.
Yeah, and I think they're fighting over a girl or something. I don't think it's good.
Got a feeling George Clooney's going to win that battle there. That doesn't seem like a fair fight.
Hey, I don't know. It just depends on the kind of man you're into.
But was it any good?
I remember not really feeling any way about it when I was young, and nobody really talks about it. So I feel like it's kind of
it was not on my high priority of watches.
George Clooney, one of our like quote unquote best movie stars, has directed a bunch of dog shit movies. Like for some reason, he has a real passion for directing, and he does it every few years, and it's always a really odd project. Do you remember that movie, like a Money Monster, that came out a few years ago? It was like about a CNBC type financial show that gets taken over by like a shooter, and it's a hostage situation on air.
Yeah,
he directed that movie for like no I don't get it.
What's considered to be like his best movie
that he's in?
Yeah,
that he's in, or that
like
he's directed?
Ocean's 11 or whatever.
Probably an Ocean's movie. Maybe The Descendants. People really like The Descendants with him. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I will say the highest rated on Letterboxd is Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox, yeah.
Gravity's popular.
Fuck Gravity.
I've always just felt like he's been an A-lister my whole life, and I look back on it and I'm like, man, I don't think I've really seen a whole lot of George Clooney movies.
He's honestly,
I will say the good movie that he's directed is Good Night and Good Luck.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that.
It's a good movie.
He's
about Edward R. Murrow.
Z-Bot, he's not in a ton of good, like, great movies.
Yeah, like, why is he always on the same list as, like, Tom Cruise and DiCaprio? And I'm always like, dude, I can't even name you.
He's a big movie star, you know, like
he comes from a time.
Oh.
He comes from a time of, like, where movie stars meant something. And and
he's done the rom-coms.
He's done everything. But he hasn't been around in good shit.
Yeah, wasn't he just in a rom-com with, like, Jessica Roberts or Julia Roberts or something like that?
Yeah,
like
they're a famous duo, the two of them.
Okay.
Have been in a lot of things together.
Leatherhead's not making the list. Concussion from 2015, the Will Smith concussion and awareness movie. What do we think of this one? Z-Bot, have you seen this?
No, and that was one of those movies where I'm just like, I refuse to see it because I hate stuff like this, where there's a topic of like concussions in the NFL. They're always prevalent, but they were never more prevalent than a handful of years ago when it became evident that there were a lot of mental disorders or physical ailments later in life that football players were suffering that were linked to brain trauma that were not previously known or were not talked about prior to not all that long ago. And then there was a huge emphasis on player safety and eliminating concussions from the game, or at least trying to minimize them. And then, you know, at that point in time, a lot of parents were becoming very cautious of, you know, deciding whether or not their kids should play. It was a really, really big thing. And it still is. I mean, this past year with Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, who suffered a brutal concussion 1 week after a concussion that many people think he did suffer, but was not indicated to be a concussion. It was a whole thing. He missed a ton of games this year, and now it's what everybody talks about when you talk about him. But to bring it full circle as far as the concussions are concerned, at that time when it was really becoming the topic of conversations around in the NFL, it just felt like Will Smith and whoever made this movie were just like, all right, you know what? Everyone's talking about this. Let's throw a serious movie together where everybody's up in arms about this, and let's cash in on it. That's what that felt like. And that's why it's just one of those movies where I look at it and I'm like, I am not submitting to that, because I don't buy into the whole thing. To me, they frame it like it's some sort of informative thing or whatever, but in reality, would that movie have come out if the concussion problem in the NFL hadn't, you know, really became prominent at the time? My guess is no.
Were they, I could be totally off base here, but I feel like I remember there being like a Will Smith like Oscar push for that movie, because I feel like I'm pretty sure there was.
There probably was.
Because I feel like it was getting around the time where people were pushing like, well, Will Smith has to get his Oscar. Will Smith has to get his Oscar. And then, you know, he finally did with King Richard, and all hell ensued. But I feel like that's kind of when it was starting. I feel like to be like, he's due for one. And this is his like big dramatic role.
Well, it probably is. It's you know, what is he playing? Like a doctor or something? The doctor that's like figuring out what's going on with the players.
I think
experiencing
premise,
concussions. Yeah. But I'm with Z-Bot. I can't get behind like an issue of the month movie. Like
I know.
There's a reason it's being made. There's a reason they push these types of roles for Oscars and stuff. It's just like it's the movie version of clickbait. It's Oscar bait. It's just a movie and a role designed to get people to go like, oh, that was nice, wasn't it? Oh, that was nice. I learned about something. And then you never hear about it again. It doesn't stand the test of time. It might win an award. It might get some reviews, but then it fizzles away just like everything else does. Concussion should not make the list.
Yeah, and that's like that with everything. Like the other night with the Grammys, which I could care less, but man, if I can't go online without seeing something about it. And the whole thing, Beyonce shit. And I'm like, I didn't even know Beyonce came out with an album, and it was the album of the year. Like, you know what I mean? But it's just because, it's like Will Smith. She needs to get she's never gotten an album of the year, apparently, even though she's the biggest Grammy winner of all time. She has like 32 of them. Everybody's all pissed off about it, even though from what I've heard, it isn't like there's anything special about the album. It's just that it's Beyonce and she should get it.
That's the thing with award shows. Me and Mike talk about this. These people win awards for roles or whatever that they shouldn't win the award for, but it's because they've been nominated so many times. It's because they have such a legacy, but they haven't won. So that now they're like, okay, we can nominate this movie and we should just give them an award because they might not be up here again or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like Leonardo DiCaprio should have had a list of them. Then he gets it for The Revenant for because he just did that movie for the Oscar, right? Like that was clear and obvious.
Exactly.
Yeah. This year, he's not going to win, but an example of I feel like Judd Hirsch is getting a legacy nomination. He was literally in one scene in The Fabelmans, and it was great. But come on, let's be real.
No, yeah, exactly. Another movie that is it's not in the same tree, but it's on the same tree, not the same branch, I guess. American Underdog. It's the Zachary Levi movie. He plays Kurt Warner. This is like a Lifetime movie, basically. Like it's like the Lifetime treatment for a popular athlete. They're giving them the generic biopic. I've never seen this. It looks horrible.
I can't take Zachary Levi seriously. I can't. I look at him and he will always be Chuck. He's Chuck.
And yeah.
And that's it. He even like him as a superhero now. I'm like, you look like a dweeb. His face is dweebish. I'm like, I'm not going to believe that you are like a Hall of Fame quarterback. You look like a fucking dweeb.
No, yeah.
Oh, that was the movie about Kurt Warner, right? Yeah. Yeah, I will say though, he does kind of look like him a little bit. I'll give him that. It was a good cast. It's just one of those movies though. Like, yeah, Kurt Warner's journey to the NFL is a cool one because he played in he played in semi-pro football, or he played in a non-NFL league before making it to the NFL, and then he won a Super Bowl, and now he's a Hall of Famer. It's a cool story, but it's just one of those stories where unless you're like a pretty big football fan, you're probably not incredibly aware of it. And so it's one of those movies where it just feels like I don't know if it's necessarily a movie. You know what I mean?
It's almost like a Wikipedia article that they made into.
Like, don't get me wrong, it's a great story. It's
like just a special. It should be like an hour-long special on Kurt Warner.
It'd be a great documentary. Yes, exactly. A great documentary where you'd like to see it from his perspective. Like, to act it out, though, I don't know if I see that. I don't know if I really see that there, I remember when I heard it coming out, and I was kind of like, I'm shocked this is kind of happening.
Yeah, especially like in theaters and stuff in the age of streaming and so many other options.
Oh, that was a theater one?
That was a theater movie. Yeah, that was a theatrical.
It's a shame we're recording this now. We could have went and saw 80 for Brady and then put that in the list.
How isn't 80 for Brady on the list?
My goodness.
Too soon. It hasn't had time to, really cement its place in the greatest of all time.
Give it time.
It's quite curious how Tom retired the weekend that shit was coming out.
He's no dummy. He's no dummy.
He's always marketing.
I think he raised the ticket sales from 100 to 103 with his retirement. I think that he boosted him up substantially there.
Another very controversial movie, the years, maybe I'm not the one I'm thinking of. Draft Day. It says 2004 on here. I know it came out a lot later than that though. Draft Day is the Kevin Costner movie where they bring you inside the boardroom, inside the behind the scenes at the NFL on draft day and show you.
Yeah, I think that was like 2016.
Yeah, that was more recent. And show you the process of what these head coaches and GMs and people deal with. Zach and Mike, I don't know anything about football, but I've been told this movie's unrealistic. Can you tell me why?
I mean, I haven't seen it, so no.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those movies where they try to they try to act like they know exactly what they're doing and then showcase it, and in reality and that's what I hate about football movies. They don't ever encapsulate the reality of football. They're all like fables. They're all, like, it's all process. A bunch of BS.
Like the process.
They're so inauthentic. And I think it's because if they weren't made that way, then there wouldn't be any movie. Like, there wouldn't be a reason to make a movie. And because frankly, there isn't a reason to make a movie. So that's why they fluff them all up. And that's why I can't stand the majority of them. This movie is one of those where if you talk to people who are like actually involved with an NFL draft, they'll tell you like, this is nothing. This is nothing even close to it. And I think that's why it's just, then again, yet again, one of those movies on this list, another one where, oh, I've heard of that. And then you move on. No one's ever going to say, oh, you haven't seen Draft Day. You know what I mean? And this is coming from the people who are most critical of these things are the audience that it's built for too. That's the other thing that's the most alarming. It's like, this isn't built for like my mom to go see, right? This is built for somebody like me to go see. And those are the people that are like, well, I watch the NFL draft every year. This isn't the regular draft is way more entertaining than this.
Yeah.
And even the regular draft, I think, is boring to a lot of people. Like the premise alone. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, I want to watch a movie about the draft. Like, right, it can only be so exciting.
Yeah, it's like the Kurt Warner thing or the concussion thing. It's like, does this need a movie?
It's like watching it's like the equivalent of this would be like watching a baseball movie about spring training.
Well, it was like Moneyball almost. Moneyball was kind of like this, but except with Moneyball, Moneyball
was great.
Right, because there was an angle to it. You know what I mean? There was a legitimate reason to make it because it was different than anything else. Draft Day, it's just like, oh, let's just, do the draft. Whereas Moneyball, they built the A's in a completely different way than anybody else was doing it.
Well, you're fictionalizing a process, and people like watching things unfold, things evolve. Like that's like, you mentioned Better Call Saul. Some of the best shit in Better Call Saul is watching Mike Ehrmantraut take how the fuck do you put this together? Take apart a car for like 15 minutes. Like, that's the shit I'm interested in. Draft Day should be engineered the same way. Show football fans how it really is behind the scenes. But that's hard to do. And this reminds me of what Mike was saying earlier, because he was talking about the bowling scene in Buffalo 66, and he's saying where you get to pick the characters apart. I was going to say the same thing, Dom. It's stuff like that in Better Call Saul that I love because I love the characters. The characters in Buffalo 66 were so unlikable that when I have to spend 20 minutes with them in the bowling alley for no reason, you understand that nothing's happening. In Better Call Saul, even though nothing's happening, you love the characters so much that you find things happening in your own interpretation, right? And that's probably what they're trying to do here, but you can't do it because it's not necessary. There's no lovability to it. You brought up Moneyball, and that's what I was going to bring up. That's a movie about process. That's a movie about figuring shit out. One, it's just a really well-made, well-acted movie. And two, they don't fluff it up because you don't need to fluff it up. We're here for the story. Show me the story. Is there a crazy draft day in the history of draft days where they could have just transcribed? Like, why do they have to make up all these scenarios and all these backroom deals to make it more exciting when in reality it just takes anybody actually interested in out of the movie? Draft Day is not going on the list.
Yeah. I feel like for better or for worse, a lot of the best football movies, and we're going to get to a lot of them later, but I feel like a lot of the best ones are based on a true story because then they are at least somewhat grounded in reality, right? And they're not, sure, they're going to take some liberties. They're going to make it a little more outlandish and fit it to the film. But regardless, there's at least some level of reality and a true story behind it, where I feel like if you're just inventing all of this shit for spectacle, you're going to get so far removed from what is possible that it's just not going to end well.
Well, it's just another one of those things that the added list of like, it's just continuous movies that they're being made and you wonder like, who's this being made for? Because if it's not being made for the football fan, because nobody that I know who's a football fan likes that movie, then who's it Like, what's this being made for?
No, yeah, it's a weird area. It's like they in a focus room somewhere, they think this is the right move to make, but they're catering it towards like middle-aged random women and like old people and like kids, and even those groups aren't going to get engaged with it, and then the ones that are being fed nonsense. Like, I don't know who they're making the movie for.
I don't either.
Speaking of great based on a true story movies, the next one, Air Bud Golden Retriever, has anybody
You gotta
checked
love
this
it.
one out?
The Air Buds are legendary. One of the first times I ever truly sobbed in a movie was one of the Air Bud movies where he takes Air Bud and doesn't he like leave him on an island and he like boats away and leaves him there.
I don't know how. What's the first Air Bud movie? Soccer?
That or basketball? One of the two. It might
basketball.
be.
I think it's basketball.
No, yeah, it's basketball. I've seen the first one and I've seen this one. This is the second one.
Okay.
Those are the only ones I've seen. I don't know if there's an island or something. Maybe in one of the movies where they're traveling, playing tennis together, they stop in Fiji and he leaves the damn.
You know what? I'm just gonna say that for the reason alone that they didn't name it Air Bud Golden Receiver instead of Golden Retriever. For that reason alone, get it. It's not making the fucking list. Let's move on.
That's a fair point.
No, that's I can totally get behind.
It was already a flop from the name. I mean, that's a dead on point.
No, they missed the ultimate pun with that one. Holy shit.
Yeah.
The next movie is a movie I watched last night. It's called Black Sunday from 1977. It's a John Frankenheimer movie where a disenfranchised Vietnam vet and a Palestinian woman decide to bomb the Super Bowl together because of their issues with the government and other factors.
Not a movie you could make today.
Not a movie you can make today. Also, this will be a trend. Like, the NFL used to put their actual logo and the actual teams in a ton of good movies, a ton of actual films. Now, the only time we see an NFL logo in a movie is for something like Draft Day, something that just feels like propaganda for the league. Black Sunday is it's a spy movie. It's really dark and gritty. It's a slow burn for like the first 2/3, but then the ending kicks ass. The whole blimp sequence and like them trying to make it on the field and the secret agent stopping them. It is exhilarating stuff. I loved it. But the first 2/3 of the movie is so boring. It's almost too much to wait for the good stuff.
Wow.
I don't think it should make the list, but it's a really interesting artifact of like football movies and what they used to make in mainstream Hollywood.
I haven't seen it, but
yeah,
it seems like you kind of liked it.
I did. I really liked the ending, that all the action with the blimp trying to make it on the field, and there's these like machine gun fights between helicopters and the blimp. It's all good stuff. But it's really a drag for about like an hour and 45 minutes.
Damn.
That alone, I think. Yeah, I think that alone is going to dissuade a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, if neither of us have seen it, if you said it shouldn't make the list, take your word for it. This next one, I can't believe you're even going to read this out loud. How?
I think it's a very...
It's a football movie?
It totally is a football movie. Ace Ventura: Pet Detective from 1994. How is it not a football movie?
I don't know.
The whole thing's about the missing dolphin from the Miami Dolphins.
Do they play football?
Is that you dead ass? Is that real?
You guys have never seen Ace Ventura: Pet Detective?
No.
Man.
The whole movie is about Jim Carrey. The whole movie is about Jim Carrey investigating the missing dolphin from the Miami Dolphin, and it ends with Dan Marino and shit in the football field. Like, it's a whole set piece at the end of the movie. It's like during the game and shit.
Okay.
Sounds better than Draft
Fair enough.
Day.
I stand corrected.
Now, I was only including it on the list because I thought it was a movie everyone had seen and would have got behind. I'm not a huge Jim Carrey 90s guy.
So neither am I.
I'm not going to push for it to be on the list, but if I was with anybody else, I feel like they would be pushing for this one.
I'm also not a Jim Carrey 90s guy. Like,
no, yeah.
I don't know. Dumb and Dumber.
I'm a Sandler. I'm a Sandler guy.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like you're either more of a Sandler guy or more of a Jim Carrey guy. And I like some Jim Carrey movies from the 90s, but Ace Ventura is just like sensory overload for me. It's never really funny. It's just about like pushing it further. There's no jokes. So that's why I've never really gotten behind it. Like that, the Sandler movies had the perfect blend of actual jokes and being goofy.
Yeah, so Sandler has some of my favorite movies ever.
Was he, Bot?
I feel like I'm going to get judged for not having seen this movie and others on the list. But you know what? I'm going to tell those people, our listeners who are judging me right now, you try and watch every single movie from a fucking 50 movie long list that Dom sends you. It's not easy to get through all of them. Okay. So
no, it is not.
You have to pick and choose your battles here.
No, for sure. It's a pool. You're not supposed it's a pool. You watch what you're most interested in. You don't watch everything. Also, okay. I'd seen a 20% of the list or something before even starting this. I didn't rewatch Ace Ventura for this. I'd seen it in high school.
All right. Well, we can slash it.
All right, Z-Bot, I think you're probably the only person who has seen this movie. It's a 2018 HBO TV movie starring Al Pacino as Joe Paterno.
Yeah.
You like this movie? Is it a good movie?
Well, it was very relatable because my grandparents met at Penn State, class of 55. It's the reason I'm alive. And I've been a big Penn State football fan, as is my whole family, for our entire life. And my entire life, Joe Paterno was the coach. He was one of the oldest coaches in any sport ever up until he passed away. So, I mean, even shortly after my grandparents graduated college, Joe Paterno was their coach. And I mean, it's incredible how long he was there for. And then for it all to crash down the way it did with the Sandusky situation and how that affected not only Joe Paterno's legacy, but it ultimately affected his life. It pretty much killed him. He died shortly after all of that happened. And I'll never forget, me personally, when they took down the statue of Joe Paterno. I mean, if you're a Penn State fan or if you have lineage to Penn State, I mean, that was like watching, I don't know. It was almost like it was the equivalent of taking down the Statue of Liberty if you're a Penn State fan or if you are, or if that's part of your family. It was like you would never have ever imagine that. And what was happening was so unprecedented and it was so insane that it truly a moment of my life I'll never forget. And mainly because we went down there, me and my grandfather, my sister and my dad, we went down there to see it. Like when they removed the statue, we went because there was protests, there was all this stuff. And then they buried Joe Paterno on the hill of Mount Nittany, and we found the burial site. We found it before anybody even knew where it was. So I saw Joe Paterno's burial site before it was made public. The whole thing was just nuts, and I got to see it right in person. So for them to make a movie about it, it was interesting to me. So that's the backstory on the reason I had interest in watching it. I thought that Pacino did a good job portraying Paterno because, I mean, from a visual standpoint, I thought it was pretty spot on. I thought the movie itself, once again, was just one of those movies where it just felt like it was taking advantage of a shit situation. You're kind of capitalizing on Paterno's death and then the entire Sandusky situation, which I understand. That movie, I understand more than maybe the others why you would make something like that, because that was a huge story. But it was a made for HBO movie. It wasn't like it was this big budget cinema, masterpiece. And I think that a lot of things were condensed down in that movie to really make it to kind of hinder the justice of a legacy that took just a lifetime to build in about a 2-week span to tear down. And it was trying to fit all that into a made for TV movie. And where I do think it was entertaining, at least from my standpoint, because I had a direct relationship to it, it just felt like it was tough to accomplish what it was trying to accomplish in the way that it was made.
So it's not making the list.
No, as far as not a list like that. It's just it's an intriguing watch because I think Pacino was a good get for it. I thought it was casted well, but it just, I don't know. It felt like the goal of it was kind of to further diminish. I don't know. It was just odd. It was an odd the way it was carried out. And I think when you're done watching it, you don't really, there's nothing you really gained from it that you don't already know.
It's interesting to see what they do to bridge gaps or to make things a little easier to say on screen rather than like if you're reading an article or something. The next movie does that horribly. It's the Mark Wahlberg Philadelphia Eagles quarterback movie. Or not quarterback movie. It's the Mark Wahlberg piece of shit Disney fucking Eagles movie Invincible from 2006. This movie sucks ass. This movie made me physically ill and angry when I watched it the other day. I didn't even finish this movie. I stopped watching it probably a half hour in because it was so nauseating to me. I'm
surprised you watched it.
It was always
I said Mark Wahlberg. I said, no fucking way. I hate him. Can't stand him. Was never gonna watch it.
Really, not a Marky Mark fan, huh?
Can't stand him. I think he's a piece of shit.
Oh,
I think he sucks as an actor. I think he's horrible.
Well, he's very bad in this movie, just like everyone in it. Everyone is phoning in their performances in this movie. It seems to be shot from the hip and just like they got as much footage as they could and then they cut it together in a semi-legible way afterwards, but it isn't semi-legible at all. It's a total like if you're like reading the movie, the shots, the angles, like what they're trying to convey with the visual language, they are failing at every turn. It's a mess. It's a mess in the edit. It's a mess on the script. It's a mess in the story. And then reading afterwards that it's all made up. Everything is like a tweak on the truth or just totally made up. It's like, why make this movie at all? Why not just make a fictional football movie in the way you want to make? Why do you have to use real life people and stuff? But this is like, also they're able to use the Eagles logo and the NFL logo and stuff, and it's because they're making garbage propaganda for the National Football League. Anytime you're making garbage propaganda for the NFL, they will sign off on it, no problem these days.
Yeah, like Madden.
Exactly.
It's the truth. There's no competition with this stuff, but that's the way they want it. They don't want to put anything at risk. I mean, that's why they don't let the intellectual property of like the video game, for instance. That's why Madden is so terrible year after year. There is no incentive to make the game better because EA has the entire rights, right? And so because of that, they know everybody will buy it because it's the only game that has the NFL logo on it. And that's the only reason anybody probably saw this movie, because it has actual NFL, licensing. So you're like, oh, the Eagles, and okay, like it's an NFL story. You're bought in. And that's where and to your point, spot on. That's what sucks about it, because you're oftentimes going to get a bunch of just a bunch of BS. There's not going to be anything there that's riveting or worth really watching or being a part of.
I don't care if you're making up every detail of the movie. It has to be a good movie. When you're making up everything and it's still a bad movie, it's like, what is the point? What is these things cost millions of dollars to make. They take months and years out of people's lives. And once it's released, it's literally forgotten about forever. Invincible shouldn't make any list besides somebody's worst football movie list. All right, Mike, I feel like this next one you might push back on me a little bit on, but I think it should totally make the list, seeing we've only put one maybe on the list.
Okay, that was my reason. Originally, I was going to say no, it shouldn't make the list, but because we've gone this long without putting another film on the list, I'm going to say that Dazed and Confused should at least make the consideration. And I do agree, like, for me, it was always borderline because I don't think it's that much of a football movie. Sure, like football is in the backdrop, but if I stand corrected, I don't think they ever really play football. They're just like, they hang out on the field at night and throw around the ball and stuff like that.
Yeah. And the whole like point of the movie is deciding if he's going to join the football, if he's going to play his senior year football. The whole the moral dilemma of the movie is, should I play my senior year? I think that's totally a football movie. It's about the play. It's about the players. It's about the team, especially at the end. The coach is a character. And I will say too, I think it is the best film of any film on this entire list. That's probably true.
It just in regards to it being a film. So yeah, I agree. It should make the list.
Bot, have you seen Dazed and Confused?
You're gonna kill me. I actually haven't.
It's a classic
Oh,
movie.
it's a good one.
I know.
It's a good
I know.
one.
It's one
You'll
of those
like
ones
it.
everybody loves.
I think you dig it. I think you dig it. It's just a fun. It's not a movie that you go for the plot. It's about the vibes. It's about you hanging out with these characters. It's about like the camaraderie, the humor and shit, the music.
Wasn't this
All right.
wasn't this McConaughey's first movie?
Yeah. All right,
So
all right.
Yeah. That's the only reason I just, it's one of those movies you like you're talking about with the quote there. Like it's one of those movies where you know a lot about it, but for some reason you've never seen the whole thing. I have like a bunch of those for some reason, but that is one I should definitely check out. But I had no idea it was centered around football.
Yeah,
it
is
on
the list.
It's going on the list. The next movie, I'm trying to find it here real quick. Number one is a Rock Hudson movie from the late 50s, the early 60s. It's about him as the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, and basically he's at the end of his career. He's not great anymore. There's younger players that could probably do a better job than him, but there's a legacy thing where he's still the starting quarterback. But it's basically about him dealing with like the guilt of all his decisions, and like looking back at his life and seeing what he has now. He's like cheating on his wife, he's getting drunk, he's doing all of these things that real people do, and obviously these quarterbacks do. But if you were to make a character study movie about an aging quarterback today, it's like, you've seen this movie a million times about boxers. Like they've made this movie with boxers so many times. It's interesting to see it with a professional quarterback in a realistic world. I really hate the fictional football teams you see in movies. They're always have horrible names. The jerseys are always horrible. But to see a real New Orleans QB like really beating himself up after messing up during a game, and then getting drunk because of it, and then cheating on his wife because of it, and then having to lie to his wife because of X, Y, and Z happened the night before, and feeling guilty about lying to his wife, and how these emotions just snowball, to see that in a realistic professional setting was awesome. And
it's interesting because we just watched a lot of this unfold with Tom Brady to some extent. He got a public divorce over the fact that he continued to play football.
Wow.
I mean, that we just watched that unfold on the biggest stage with the biggest athlete of our entire life, arguably one of the biggest athletes of all time. And like when you go through Brady, and this will be dissected until the end of time, he'll get movies and there'll be everything, and rightfully so. But what you're talking about here, I think is awesome because it's the rawness of the behind the scenes. We only know Tom Brady for who he is on camera, and Brady's even admitted himself that half the stuff he says he doesn't even mean. He just says it because he's quarterback and he's the face of the franchise and he's got an image to uphold. That's a really cool perspective because a lot of times people do not understand. I actually thought about this not too long ago. This year, the Denver Broncos, for example, were supposed to be incredibly good this year with Russell Wilson. The roster was completely reloaded, and they were supposed to be not only a playoff contender, but a potential Super Bowl contender. And they won 4 games, and they fired Nathaniel Hackett, their head coach, midway through the year. And I always thought about this, and it kind of clicked with me this year in particular, where I think as I get older, it makes more sense. But, you can this guy on the public stage in the middle of the year, and all the media, it's all they're talking about for that week is that firing. But no one ever talks about the fact that guy just, whether you loved him or hate him, that guy just got essentially publicly humiliated, and they just have to move on like it never happened in order to move on with their life. So I think what you're getting at with this movie is really cool because you get that from the background perspective of someone who I think is in that storyline. It's lived out by probably the majority, like not maybe the getting drunk stuff and lying to your wife stuff, but like the aging quarterback or player having to deal with what comes with that. That's what all these players have to face. And when you listen to them at the end of their career, it does not seem easy to do. And I think that's a really cool thing that you probably won't see again because you're not going to get that element in a movie with the NFL involved with it. You're not going to see it.
No, they're too afraid. It's a really raw, honest movie. And it also did a bunch of things that I saw in later football movies, like the screen effect, the multi-screen effect in Buffalo 66, and they also do it in Burt Reynolds' The Longest Yard and stuff. But it's almost, there's a bunch of things in the movie that I saw in other football movies that I was like, oh, I wonder if this influenced a bunch of stuff, and I just had never heard of it before.
Also, my biggest gripe with... Oh, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say I'm gonna add this because I was trying to find the film on Letterboxd, and for the life of me, I couldn't track it down. It's not starring Rock Hudson; it's starring Charlton Heston.
Charlton Heston.
That's why that
was my problem.
Yeah, big difference.
No, huge difference.
Huge difference between like crazy fucking nut that Charlton Heston was and like closeted gay Rock Hudson. Also, like a 20-year time gap in between.
No, you're totally right.
Their heyday, but
1969.
It does look interesting. Yeah.
I'm gonna vote for that.
But so is it making the list?
I think it should make the maybe list depending on what else we sort out through.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you're the only one that's seen it. So if you are an advocate for consideration, we will add it for now.
It's a hard recommend, especially to any football fan out there.
I didn't get a chance to get to that one, but after listening to you talk about it, that's actually one that genuinely piqued my interest. You talking about it. It doesn't sound like a bunch of BS like all of these movies tend to be.
Well, and there's a few actual football scenes in the movie, and they're just like the way they're paced out and the way they're shot. It's the most realistic football I've ever seen, and it probably is just realistic football, but it's not flashy. It's not. Yeah. They're not trying to do all this stuff, and the gameplay was different back then, obviously. Right. But I've noticed in that and The Longest Yard, the Burt Reynolds movie, that was like some of my favorite football I've watched in a movie.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that was what I was just about to say before Mike was talking about the finding the movie on Letterboxd there. That's my biggest gripe with football movies, the way they film the actual football. It is horrendous. Like the tackling, like you'll notice when the team that's not supposed to win is coming back and they get the most unrealistic turnover ever. And the one guy makes like 9 people miss on a tackle where all of a sudden they just lose the ability, like their limbs lose the ability to move and they just fall to the ground. The guy takes the ball 100 yards. I hate that. The way it's portrayed, like the game, none of it's viable. It just doesn't click.
I'm going to jump around a little bit for this section B here. These are the B movies. We just went through all the C movies
with Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry Seinfeld,
the B movie.
Oh
God, come on, that was terrible.
That one went right over.
I appreciated it.
Mike got on.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
I'm a little slow today, I guess.
I will say the good thing is like your free rankings of this podcast so far are coming to fruition in the terms that we hated most of the C movies. So,
no, yeah, it was
continue on with your B movies, whatever you were gonna say.
Okay, this is more of a mix of like football adjacent movies and other popular football movies that we've heard, but aren't necessarily what people consider the best. I want to jump around a little bit here.
Okay.
Silver Linings Playbook. I know you watched it for the first time, right, Mike, last week?
Yeah.
What did you think of that movie?
I really enjoyed Silver Linings Playbook. I really liked the cast. I thought, Robert De Niro was great, Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, and I loved how it was football adjacent, but it had enough football in it. There was actually, you didn't watch any football being played. But it was so critical to the plot, Robert De Niro them all really being Eagles fans, but Robert De Niro really betting on the Eagles and having his superstitions. And that's actually how I am. Like, if I start to sit in a certain position or, I'm with certain people, I'm like, you can't leave the room, or like, don't sit down. That's how I get watching sports. Particularly the Vikings, more than like any other sport I get superstitious about. So, I appreciated that, but I just thought it was like a really enjoyable watch, and really well made, and it had enough football in it. I vote for it to be on the list, at least is part of the consideration. But something tells me that you're gonna just like hate this movie, think it's like so overdone.
Didn't it win a bunch of awards?
Yeah, it's a popular movie. It is.
Yeah.
I don't dislike this movie. I haven't seen it since like high school, Mike, but in high school I liked it a lot.
Okay.
I think these worlds where it's like about fans or just about like things happening around football are just as worthy of making the list than movies with coaches at practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And
they're
also
they're better oftentimes.
I think that's going to be the trend. I think most of our movies are going to be more dramas or like comedies about football rather than like the typical football.
I know mine are
inspo drama.
So can we agree it's on the list for now?
No, for sure.
Cool.
I also think De Niro's a little bit like Angelica Houston in Buffalo 66 after watching it and hearing you talk about it again.
Yeah, no, he kind of is, where he like definitely puts his entire family in jeopardy over his football fandom, and much like Angelica Houston does. So yeah, that's an apt comparison. I did not see that prior, but I think that's a good point.
A movie I don't think should make the list is Jerry Maguire. Have you guys seen Jerry Maguire?
I watched Jerry Maguire. I watched Jerry Maguire's Show Me the Money. I watched Jerry Maguire for the first time on my flight back from Italy. So I watched it on like a 6-inch screen on a plane. Yeah, Cuba Gooding Jr. Wow, just what a performance by Cuba. You know what? It's a fun movie. I enjoyed Jerry Maguire. Would I put it on the list? Would I put it on the list? No. I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't put it on the list. And it is a football movie too. Like there's a good deal of football in it. But no, I wouldn't. I like Tom Cruise in it.
I like people in it. I like moments, but I think the overall movie is annoying and the story is just stupid. Have you seen this, Z-Bot?
No, what's it have to do with football?
He's an agent and Cuba Gooding Jr. is a player.
Oh, okay. What's Tom Cruise playing it?
He's the agent.
He's the agent.
Oh, really? Okay. It's not you're not a fan of it though.
It's just an annoying, stupid movie. I mean, people do like this movie.
It's fun. It's
one of those 90s movies people like go back to. It's who directed it, Mike? Isn't it the director of Almost Famous, Cameron Crowe?
I think so.
I think so too.
I won't claim
I think it is, actually.
I'm just gonna go along with it.
But yeah, no, I've never liked this movie. I bought the DVD in high school, watched it once, and then never considered playing it again. I think I brought with me when I moved most of my movies that did not make the box.
Oh no, that's collecting dust back at the parents.
Yeah, that's in the garage.
Or Jerry Maguire.
Have you guys seen The Express, the Ernie Davis movie? I assume everyone has. That
Go Orange
is from around Syracuse.
Yeah, that's like one where the Disney kind of got it right. I think it was probably what they were trying to do.
I think that's Disney.
Is it not Disney? I thought it was.
No, I think it's just kind of a random movie.
But see, like Ernie Davis is a guy like deserving of a movie. That's where that's like back to the Kurt Warner thing where I think it's a great story. I don't know. It also seems a little too soon. Like, you know, Kurt Warner is like our parents' age. So that just kind of seemed like a weird timing for that movie. But Ernie Davis, I mean, he's a legend, you know. So that was a movie, I think, where, you know, a lot of players you could argue deserve a movie or whatever, but Ernie Davis, I don't think anybody would dispute it.
Yeah, it was made by Universal, by the way.
I saw it when it like came out on video on demand back when I was younger. I didn't hate it because it was cool to see like a Syracuse movie, and I always
I think for the Syracuse pride, we have to give it a little consideration here.
Okay, no, I'm okay. I'm okay with putting.
I think we have to,
because we haven't really put.
It might not make the final cut, but I think for the Syracuse pride, we have to give it some consideration.
Sure thing. I got no problem with that.
All right.
We didn't watch Varsity Blues, which people say is a good like teen drama football movie. Yeah. We didn't watch Brian's Song, which I was actually interested in, but I didn't get.
I will say I really wanted to see Varsity Blues for one reason, and that reason is that Varsity Blues is the film of choice in the Movie Monday episode of The Office, where Jan comes in and they're all watching the movie.
Oh yeah.
And they're watching Varsity Blues, and Michael gives like Kevin the honor of summarizing last week's episode when they watched their installment of it. And so I've always I've heard of Varsity Blues for the longest time, and I've never watched it, but it doesn't have like the best rating, so I think we're okay cutting it.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to watch Brian's Song, but I didn't get around to that either. It's a James Caan football drama where he's like dying from cancer or something and befriends a black player on the team. I was thinking about putting Rollerball up for consideration. Have you guys seen Rollerball?
No, it doesn't even sound like a football movie.
See, here's the thing. It's not really a football movie. It takes place in a future in the sport of rollerball, but rollerball is like roller derby mixed with football. So I feel like
pass.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how the hell that could be a movie.
Yeah, no.
Well, look at their costumes. They're very football inspired. The uniforms for the rollerball league. But I'm okay with just Xing it off the list.
Yeah.
The Replacements. The Replacements. Have you guys seen The Replacements? It's a Keanu Reeves, Gene Hackman.
That's
football.
Considered to be one of the better ones.
People like this movie. I watched it in like college, I think, and thought it was fine. Not really memorable to me in any way, but I didn't revisit it. Did you watch this movie, Mike?
I did not. No.
All right, I think that's an immediate X then. Okay, we should talk about Heaven Can Wait, Mike, because this is
Heaven Can Wait was awesome.
This is something we both watched for this episode.
I was so pleasantly surprised.
Do you want to explain what it's about and then why you liked it?
Yeah. Okay, so it's a wild premise. So Warren Beatty is the main character. He is the quarterback of the LA Rams at that time. We're talking old LA Rams before they moved to St. Louis, not after they moved back.
Another real football team. Another real football team.
So it's about Warren Beatty. He's the quarterback of the LA Rams, attempting to lead them to the Super Bowl. And like he finds out like he's going to be the starting quarterback moving forward. I think like he was maybe like the second string or whatever. But like early in the film, he finds out like, this is your time to shine, kid. You're the starting quarterback. Now lead us to the Super Bowl. And like immediately he's like, yes, like runs out the door, goes running and exercising, and he's riding his bike and he like dies in a car wreck. It's like going to be hit by an RV. And then it literally transports him to heaven. He's like up in the clouds and come to find, and like he has like, there's a guy there. It's like a processing center where like someone's taking down names and whatever. And they're like, oh, you're not scheduled to die until 2025 or whatever. So, okay, so this is what happened. So his angel or whatever, the guy that transports him to heaven, thought that he would spare Warren Beatty the really gruesome death of getting hit by an RV. So he claimed he like took his soul or whatever from his body just moments before impact. But turns out he would have lived. Like he wasn't scheduled to die. He made a mistake. And so, but Warren Beatty's body is already like gone now. It's dead. They can't put him back in it. So this is why it gets wild. Like from that point on, they're like, oh, we have to find a new body to put you in. And so they end up putting him in the body of like this billionaire guy. And so now he's like living in this mansion and all of these people think he's the billionaire, but in his head, he's still the quarterback guy and he still wants to play quarterback. Like it's still his mission. He's like, I'm going to train and I'm going to play quarterback for the Rams. And he like gets the Rams coach to come, whatever. And he's like, you got to let me play quarterback. And they won't let him. So he decides to buy the Rams, just buy the team so he could play quarterback for them in the Super Bowl. And it's like, it's so outlandish.
Wow.
That it's amazing. Like
that's a hell of a premise.
Can't recommend it enough.
It's very much a 70s movie. And I just like the way they tackle kind of this magical premise or this extra worldly idea that they're trying to execute. And they play it very straight. I like how you said it was similar to a Charlie Kaufman movie, because it is. It's kind of like in Being John Malkovich, the premise, the setup is so wild, but they play it straight and they commit to it that you believe every second of the way. This was an awesome movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. Warren Beatty is great. It takes you places I really did not expect. This would be another like hard recommend to anybody. I don't think it's necessarily gonna satisfy the football fan looking for a football movie, but it is one of the straight up better movies on the list. Written by Elaine May, who made Mikey and Nicky, and Ishtar and a bunch of other movies featuring great 70s and 80s actors. But no, this one should definitely make the list.
Making the list. Yeah. And I will say, like, it actually took me like a little while to get into too, because it was so outlandish, but then eventually totally hooked on it. And the ending, oh my God, the last 10 minutes is like amazing.
All right, now
that sounds awesome.
No, it's a great movie. It's a great movie, especially for like the Warren Beatty performance alone.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the A section now. These are all the big hitters. These are what the people describe as classics in the world of football movies. So far we have. Let's do a little recap though. Let's see where we're at for our list. In no order, we have Buffalo 66, Dazed and Confused, Number 1, Silver Linings Playbook, The Express, and Heaven Can Wait. That is 1, 2, 3. That's 6 movies.
6.
So technically, we need another 4. We have a bunch.
4 or more. We might add more.
Yeah. Who cares? We shouldn't limit ourselves. But let's go through the A list. Let's just start at the bottom again. Radio. Have you guys seen Radio?
I have seen bits and pieces of Radio. I can't say I've seen it in full, but I feel like growing up, my cousin was obsessed with Radio. So it's like, I feel like I was around Radio, which is like so weird to say because I don't know. It's just a weird movie to be.
That's
like
a funny obsession.
All obsessed
no kidding.
with. Yeah.
Have you seen it, Z-Bot?
I think he was maybe obsessed with it in a little bit of. Maybe in a little bit of a mocking way, if we're being honest, which isn't great to say, but
no, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's like the last movie I'd ever think anybody would have an obsession with.
Well, I feel like Rudy is like even more of a movie to make fun of than Radio.
No, I love Rudy.
Oh my God.
Rudy's making the list.
That's a movie a lot of like actual football players just absolutely hate.
I Will Die on the Hill. Rudy's making the list.
Rudy is the most obnoxious movie I've ever watched.
I fucking when your Letterboxd review, what did you say? He's one of cinema's all-time greatest dorks or something like that?
All-time goofballs.
All-time goofballs. I thought that was so endearing. I thought that was a positive review. I guess it could
be. It could be.
It was great. Rudy is amazing. You know, let me tell you what I love about Rudy. And this is, and I hate Notre Dame.
Wait, hold on. So I'm going to say no to Radio. Let's just go.
Yeah, me too. Rudy. Okay. Get rid of Radio.
Agreed.
So Rudy, what I love about Rudy is, first of all, Sean Astin. Love Sean Astin. Samwise Gamgee, Rudy. Let's go. But what I love about Rudy is that he's such a fan, and that's what I connect with, because I remember being like, you know, as a kid, when you're a fan of a team, you just have like this, I guess, like wild imagination and adoration for the team and think it's the greatest ever. And it's like when you get older, you become miserable and you're like, the Vikings suck. This is another year of misery, whatever. But like when you're a kid, you have such high hopes, you know, for your team. And so I love that aspect of it. I love how it's such like a centerpiece to their family and his relationship with his father. But what I love too about Rudy is that it's not even about a game or a season. Like all of these football movies are like, oh, we are going to have this championship winning season. We're going to go win state. We're going undefeated. Or, you know, it's like the shitty team where it's like, oh, we can't win a fucking single game. And now we finally won one, right? Like that's every football movie is one or the other. And right. Rudy is about one play, just putting that jersey down on the table to get the Rudy in for one play so he could go down in history as a Notre Dame player. And that's why I love Rudy, and it is making the list. It is my one exception. I don't care what you say. It's going on there.
Right. It is a good story, and I love what Mike says there because I agree completely. All these movies are typically about a bunch of BS when it comes to, like, that's why I can't stand stuff like Friday Night Lights, where it's like, the whole town needs this win, coach. You know, we need it. We need it in order to save the town. We got to win Friday night. Like, I hate that.
Oh, it's so funny because I'm also putting Friday Night Lights on the list.
Oh, man.
Well, it's just that every movie is like, all these movies try to be that Friday Night Lights, I think, where there's some premise or centered around like the big game. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The one thing that's cool about Rudy is it is one of those stories like when you are a kid, it's exactly what Mike said, where it's like that movie plays out everybody's, you know, fantasy, I think. But it's just, I think it's one of those movies that even if you're not a fan of it, you can't not, when you think football movies, Rudy's the one that everybody thinks of. You know what I mean? So I think it's one of those love it or hate it ones. It's so solidified in the genre, you almost have to put it in there regardless, you know?
I do appreciate the fact that if they made a movie like Rudy today, it would look and feel like total dog shit. Like it would have the Netflix look to it, and it would feel like a Netflix movie. I do appreciate the fact that a lot of these movies, even if they're not like for me, I'm not necessarily saying Rudy's a bad movie, but it's definitely not made for a person like me. Even these movies, I can appreciate like all the lighting, like all the steel mill stuff looks awesome. That like dark photography, the way the sparks fly across the screen, like there's a lot to appreciate about Rudy from its time that we just don't have anymore.
That's a good point.
Next up is The Blind Side. Automatic no for me. This movie is like almost offensive to me.
I hear you. Sandra Bullock's insufferable in it.
I hate Sandra Bullock, period. She's even worse in this movie. The fact that the guy they made it about hates the movie should be enough to
and I didn't even know that till recently. When I heard that definitely turned me off too. Because I don't mind the movie, but when you look at it the way I think you look at it, I do understand it. Where it's kind of like
they literally changed this guy's whole life to make it seem like he overcome the bigger thing than he did. I mean, his real life story is interesting enough, but then they had to like basically demean him and turn him into somebody he wasn't for the sake of this movie with Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw.
Yeah, and they have to. What's up with the scene where like the kid's got to get in a car accident? Like, what does it have to do with anything?
I'm curious if that happened in real life or not.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what? And if it didn't, why was that added?
With the trend of like how much they bend these stories, I wonder if let's look it up. Blind.
It's tough with these movies because I don't think you know exactly what is BS and what isn't when it comes to trying to tread the line of a true story.
Sorry, I disconnected there for a minute. What film are we on?
We're still on The Blind Side. We're just saying.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of offensive how much they changed this guy's story just to make it seem like he's overcoming like a bigger obstacle than he was. But he did say the car accident was true.
Okay. All right. So that makes it a bit more.
What I will say about The Blind Side is until recently when I looked up the film when we were going through the list, I forgot Tim McGraw is in it. Yes. And I just got to say on an unrelated note that I thought Tim McGraw was fantastic in 1883. That Yellowstone sequel show was very good, and he was great in it. I was very impressed by Tim McGraw. I did not think of him as an actor, but yeah, he was great.
I didn't know you. Are you all caught up with the Yellowstone universe? Have you watched all of them?
No, I've just watched 1883. And in 1923, I actually haven't watched Yellowstone yet, so that'll be next.
Yeah, well, you all also mentioned Friday Night Lights, Mike, which Tim McGraw is also in.
Who's he in Friday Night Lights?
Isn't he one of the dads?
Hold on.
He's like the douchebag dad. I think.
he's the dickhead.
He was the douchebag. Really?
I think so.
That's what our buddy told us. I don't know.
Let me look.
Confirm that, but I thought it.
I'm going to Letterboxd right now.
I thought it was Tim McGraw even before Matt Kelly said that.
Oh my God, it is Tim McGraw. I didn't even recognize him.
All right.
Wow, he was good as the douchebag dad. That was one of the best.
He's a good actor. I was gonna say, Mike, like even before like Yellowstone, he's had a history He's had a history of having some good roles.
I did not even realize, but yeah, that was the douchebag dad is one of the more compelling characters in Friday.
I didn't even realize he was in Yellowstone.
One of the spinoffs.
Huh.
But
they got Harrison Ford and shit in those spinoffs. Like
they're mad good
from everybody. All right, I gotta say no to Blindside. I hope you guys are with me on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool with me.
Did I miss anything between Blindside and Rudy?
No,
that was it.
Oh, cool.
You want Friday Night Lights? I'm fine putting that on there for now.
My thing with Friday Night Lights is I thought it was a good movie. I didn't think it was like extraordinary, but I'm giving it a little bit of a bump because it led to a very successful show as well. And I remember watching the show growing up. So I think it has to get a little bit of credit for also the show. And I liked Billy Bob Thornton in Friday Night Lights. He was very Nick Saban-esque to me in that film. Yeah. And I liked how it was all about the community and it, Texas, they take that shit seriously. So I thought it was really an interesting angle there. I thought it was an interesting angle compared to, let's say, like, Remember the Titans, where, like, Remember the Titans, they're all about, like, in Virginia, we really take our football seriously. Like, it's, and I'm like, give me a fucking break, Virginia. Like, talk to Texas.
Well, Remember the Titans is heavy on the whole thing's about the
race
segregation.
Yeah.
Have you seen Remember the Titans before? I feel like I'm like the only person in the world that hadn't seen it. So
no, it was a first time watch for me.
Okay, yeah, me too. I assume you've seen it when you were younger, Z-Bot.
Yeah, it's just one of those movies where I feel like everybody has seen it, but I feel like it's also one of those movies where I've seen it and I remember nothing about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's
like all these movies to me. That's what it feels like. You see them at one point in your life and you don't know where or when or why, and then it kind of gets lost in the back of your brain.
I thought the movie was Coach Carter before I played it. I was like,
that's the basketball one.
That's the basketball one, and that's the movie where the player's heart is too big for his chest, so he can't play basketball, right?
Is it? I haven't seen Coach Carter.
I think there's a beat in that movie where his heart is too big for his chest, or it might be another Disney basketball movie, with like Josh Charles or somebody as the coach. I don't even know now.
Yeah, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I have absolutely no clue.
I'm good with saying no to Remember the Titans. Are you guys?
Hold on. Oh,
you want it on?
I could go either way because I thought Denzel gave a great performance.
Yes.
Definitely. Look, it was Disney's take on, like, let's fix racism. It was very oversimplified, but I did think, like, at the end of the day, in terms of a football movie, right, I thought it was pretty interesting from, like, a plot perspective regarding the football. And, it's like a good, heartwarming, feel-good sports movie, which is never a bad thing. So for those reasons, I am pro list. But like I said, the sort of, like, we fixed racism and, like, this is what, like, the Disney approach is more of a con. So
right,
I could go either way. So if both of you think it should be off the list, then I'm not going to fight to keep it on, but I thought it was worthy of discussion.
Well, I'm more on the fence about it, I guess. I was talking to
it's Kelly. Just not, it's like Rudy, where it's just like, how could it not be? It's just one of those ones where it's like
iconic. Yeah,
it is the genre.
I will say, I think, like, if it's not, I think we would get hate over not having this on the list. I think people have a lot of nostalgia about Remember the Titans.
I'll put it on there for now. We'll see if it makes the cut.
Okay.
I saw you watch We Are Marshall, Mike. I watched that a long time ago, but didn't revisit it. What did you think about it?
It's in the same vein of Remember the Titans. It's right there with it, I think. It's obviously a little bit different. We Are Marshall's about the plane crash and rebuilding the team after that. Matthew McConaughey, gives a good performance, is the head coach.
That's a wild story.
Yeah, have you seen it?
Yeah, it's just one of those stories where that's based on a true story.
Based on a true story, yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of borderline on it. Like I can't like, and even like
It's just
I had this thought prior to the recording, and I still haven't decided. Like it's right there. Like I couldn't say what's better, We Are Marshall or Remember the Titans. Like for me, they're either both on the list or they're both off of it. I can't choose between the
What's
two.
because all these movies are the same with just different plot lines.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's the problem.
Yeah, different backgrounds. What is the thing with We Are Marshall? I know the plane crash, but do they have an undefeated season after, or what happens?
No,
they win like the first game back. I think
they win like I think it's the second game back.
Okay, yeah.
Like, and that's what's interesting about it is like a lot of football movies. You know, it's all like the plot is leading up to the very end of the season. You know, and they either win or lose the championship or whatever. But like, Remember the Titans, because of the devastation, they're just trying to rebuild the program and get it back up off its feet. So like they lose the first game, and then the second game they finally get their first win, and it's like such a momentous occasion for that entire town. That's really the crux of the film, and that's it. And then after like they win that first game, like the you know, they just do the words at the end that explain what happens to all of these people and how the season ends. They're like, yeah, they went on to lose a bunch of games, and the coach left and went somewhere else, and the players did this, and that was it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm torn on it. I guess like it deserves the Remember the Titans treatment in my book.
All right, I'll put it on for now. But
okay.
I honestly, I don't think it's Remember the Titans level. So I don't think it has to be both or neither. I think Remember the Titans could go on there without it.
I think most people would probably lean with that sentiment, but I do get what Mike's saying. They're kind of the same to where if you think of one, if you've seen one, you've probably seen the other, you know?
Sure.
So I think there's one more movie that's an automatic no, and then the rest are either automatic yeses or debatable. I do not think Any Given Sunday should go on the list. This is something me and Mike watched over the last week. Do you know what this movie is, Z-Bot?
Yeah. It's one of those ones that's up there, but you know, to me, it's whatever. It's considered to be one of the classics. It just kind of falls right back into that same vibe for me, where it's just another one of those cliche football movies. But I know you guys, you hated it, right?
I think it's definitely one of the bigger name football films. It's one that like if people think football films, that's one I think the average person could name off the top of their head, along with some of these other ones we just discussed. I remember I watched it first before Dom, and I was like, Any Given Sunday kind of sucked. Like, and that's why it's like I was afraid to say like that it was horrible, because I don't know. I thought for this film, I had the biggest disappointment in. Like, I had high expectations. I was like, I was pumped. I was like, all right, we got Al Pacino. I'm like,
Oliver Stone.
This is Oliver Stone movie, and Oliver Stone has a very distinct style, and all the other films of his I've seen that I really liked, and I was just like so disappointed, and I couldn't get into it at all, and it was so fucking long, and Cameron Diaz was annoying.
She sucked. She's so
and it was
bad.
The movie was horrible. It was not good.
No, it was like over stylized. It felt too much like it came out.
I had fucking nausea just watching it.
I understand like things are gonna date movies, and I want a movie to feel like of its time to a certain degree, but it was just like it was like a 3-hour music video, like a highlight reel music video.
Yeah,
cut with these horrible dramatic scenes of like,
and the fake teams, and it was just
the fake teams in this Z-Bot are horrible.
What are the teams again? I forget what the teams are.
They're the Miami Sharks. And then one of their big games is against like the Dallas what is it, Mike? The Dallas Tempests or something, and they have like big crosses on their jerseys. It's like a religious thing.
I just hate that. I hate the dramification of it, like of the whole thing, where I just think it's so like, once again, it goes back to my point where you're watching this, and then you're also you assuming it's made for the football fan, and you watch it as a football fan, and you're like, I just don't. This isn't. There's no connectability there. I just don't see it.
Yeah,
it doesn't relate.
The Cameron Diaz role too was so dramatic. Like
Explain
storming
it
in,
yeah.
like she is like some kind of executive. Like
I think she's the owner. She's
the owner. Yeah,
she's the new owner because her dad was the owner and he died.
Yeah, and it's just like so overkill. She's like storming into the locker room and like telling Al Pacino what to do and
going behind his back. Like
there's just all these weird scenes with her where they're like, there's like these backdoor conversations and it's just like so unrealistic.
It's a movie that has good bones and could be really interesting. Like a real raw look at like a young football team and like nightlife and celebrity.
Like I think it's supposed to be like the effect of it's know like playing football on players and how it's the whole business is for money, right? And like that's what it and like that's the message that Oliver Stone is trying to tell, and it's perfectly in line with like what his whole thing is, but it's just like so poorly executed on every level.
Yeah, especially stylistically, like all the songs that would cut in and all the football scenes. Like how many tracking shots of a football were there where somebody would just sling it and it would be like slow.
That's what I hate. Yeah, that's the worst part
really
about
bad.
this.
It was
this
really
is
bad.
Like out of this 3-hour movie, an hour 20 minutes is just like slow mo football.
Yeah,
right.
And it was like blurring and shit. Like it was giving me a headache just watching it.
They would focus on linemen and stuff, and you would hear tigers growl. Like the sound design was like animals at the zoo, predators like growling and roaring.
Yeah, and you're right. The song choices were wild. Like especially when they started playing DMX, and it was just him saying like the N-word repeatedly. I was like, how is this in this movie right now?
Yeah, the Oliver Stone movie. All right, definitely doesn't deserve of making the list.
Yeah,
I think both. I think both Longest Yard should be on the list. I don't know.
No,
I was gonna. No. Wow. Okay.
Well, the modern one for sure. That's like that's like my favorite football movie ever.
What do you think, Mike?
So I remember when you texted me like a week ago. You said if you watch the original, you have to watch the Adam Sandler version too. I did not. I just watched the original. I did not watch the Sandler one.
You've never seen the Sandler one?
I've seen it like a really long time ago. And like again, I feel like I've seen like The Longest Yard and The Waterboy in pieces because my cousin was also obsessed with these movies.
Yeah.
And so I was around them. As Dom knows, I'm not a big Adam Sandler guy. I'm just not. Particularly like his 2000s, 90s, whatever comedies.
Mike hasn't seen a lot of like the most popular.
Yeah, no, I haven't. That's
comedies from.
Yeah,
when we
I just
were
don't really
up.
have an interest.
Gotcha.
Like he's never seen Superbad.
Yeah, I know.
Wow, that's like arguably my favorite movie ever.
Just to like put it in perspective.
Yeah. Really throw me under the bus there. But that being said, I chose not like I had limited time here, and I didn't watch the Sandler version of The Longest Yard because I figured I could somewhat base my opinion on it based off of the original Longest Yard because my thought process was like, well, I saw that Dom, you rate the original a half-star higher on Letterboxd. So that informed my opinion a little bit. And I also said, like, look, if Dom likes the original more than me, not being the big Adam Sandler fan, I'm really not going to like his version more. So that's why I did not watch it.
After rewatching the original, I realized that the remake is like beat for beat the same movie. Like structurally, every scene is the same. It's just the jokes are updated for today. Even some of the jokes are the same, but they're just
like
slightly...
he broke his fucking nose. That's the same, right?
That's
an iconic joke from that movie.
Yeah,
they
that's
just
the
keep repeating
same.
It.
The cheerleaders, they make them like a bigger joke in the Adam Sandler version. But that's like Tracy Morgan and stuff, and they're just eating it up. instead of like him just like beating his wife in the beginning, then going drunk driving, he's at a party, he leaves, like his wife's throwing a party. So there's just like little updates on it. I like the original because I think the drama works a little better. It's like a really interesting balance of like social issues and like a prison movie, and then you get like the comedy in the football movie. I think the original's a little better at that, but I kind of like when certain movies are just straight up remade, like they didn't change too much about it. They kind of updated it for today, but they didn't remake the whole movie. They didn't take it apart. And I think this is actually one of the effective examples of that. There's not a ton, but when it works, it works. And I think both Longest Yards are good football movies. And I love
this movie.
I grew up with the Adam Sandler one. Like I've seen this movie so many times.
Same.
And it's just kind of like nostalgic for me. Like it even ends the same way, Z-Bot, with like he thinks he's leaving, so he's gonna shoot him with a gun. Yeah, he thinks he's gonna shoot. It ends the same way. Yeah. And I love the ending.
It's the game ball. It's the game ball.
Yeah.
That movie's got everything. It's hilarious. It's, as far as like the idea itself is concerned when incorporating, and that's back to the point we've been making throughout this, where all these movies have some sort of terrible cliche in them that's tough to look past. This one doesn't. This is completely different, in my opinion. I think it blends together the perfect mix of the inequality of the inmates and the guards, in addition to the inequality between what Paul Crewe was before he was an inmate and then the inmates themselves. And now that doesn't matter when you're in prison. You're a prisoner, and you're the same as the guy in the next cell, right? And then they all form that bond, and the guys who don't even want to play wind up playing just because of their disdain for the guards. The Mean Machine is you want to talk about names? That's the coolest name.
It is the best fake football team ever.
Yes, the jerseys are badass. Burt Reynolds as like the pseudo coach / quarterback that's amazing.
Yeah,
and like at the same time, when it's serious when it wants to be and it's hilarious when it wants to be, it's also like out of nowhere super like depressing and serious when Chris Rock just gets murdered. It takes the biggest right turn. You don't see that coming. And they do it in a way that's really jarring, like they don't really hold back in the modern one, like showing him, die, and how that kind of inspires them.
They show it in the original too. He's fully on fire.
Yeah. But it's crazy because the same movie that has that also has Adam Sandler doing underwear modeling for the secretary and has Tracy Morgan as a cheerleader. Like Cheeseburger Eddie, iconic ancillary character, hilarious. When they're doing drills, and I forget who it is, who the big fat guy running around, he's like, get a corn and I'll be fine. And he's just laying down, just heavy breathing. And I think the fact that when most movies end in a way that they're kind of like building up to end where they're predictable, I like how in this one, it's easy to assume that Adam Sandler is going to take the easy way and doesn't, in respect for all those who are there with him. And I think that the inspiration from this movie doesn't necessarily come from the football itself, but it comes from, doing the right thing. And then also, like, you even have the main guard there kind of coming around too, to realizing Adam Sandler, he's a good guy, and the warden's actually the bad guy in all this. I think it's got the perfect blend, and it uses football to encapsulate all that, which is awesome. Because I think a lot of these other ones, football is the main premise where you're supposed to feel that, like you're supposed to get that lesson or that emotion, where in this way, I think you get all of it, and then it incorporates the football. And then on top of that, also, it's just the little things. Like if you're a football fan, Chris Berman's calling the game on ESPN. Like that is incredible that they incorporate stuff like that into this, which I think is awesome. And they give him like a few really hilarious cameos where he's with that one prisoner doing the calls with him. And you can tell Chris Berman's just terrified of the guy.
Yeah.
Love this movie. And it's one of those movies, like you said, Dom, like if it's on, you just leave it on. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter how many times you've seen it. It's got so many, you could pick that movie up at any time throughout the movie, and, you can ride along with it till the end, and it, you never get sick of it.
No, it's if you're flipping through the channels and you find this, you're keeping it on for sure. I think both deserve it. Z-Bot, you got to watch the original. Let's put them both on for now, and then we got to eliminate some stuff eventually.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm like scared of the original because of how much I like the newer one. You know,
they are like the same movie, Z-Bot. Really, I think you'll honestly like them both more after seeing the first one.
That's cool. I like that.
The Waterboy.
Yeah, I'm glad we're going right into it.
I don't need the Waterboy. I never really had a personal relationship with the Waterboy like I had with all those other movies when I was growing up. But It sounds like you like to see that.
It's hilarious. It's and I said this to you before we started. I find it truly hilarious that a genre that tries to take itself way too seriously and a genre that tries to be super dramatic and overplay the main premise of the movie, that the genre is, in my opinion, led by Adam Sandler. I think that is the best part of all of this, is that in this genre, if it were up to me, the top movies would include Adam Sandler, and that would be Longest Yard and The Waterboy. I think The Waterboy is hilarious because it takes Rudy almost, but puts it in a way that is perfect for Adam Sandler, where you take that premise of a guy who does not belong out on this field, right? A guy who, you know, he's around the sport, but has no business being out there. But except they do it in a way where they make it not where Rudy, he earns his stripes and gets out on the field. They make it where Waterboy happens to be the second coming of Lawrence Taylor. And I think that is just hysterical. And there's no, like, as far as sports movies are concerned, and then as far as comedies are concerned, there's fewer better scenes than when Coach comes over for dinner with Mama. I mean, it's just like unbelievable. You can barely even digest what you're watching. The fact that what do they serve, an alligator or whatever and the fact that everybody's like, you know, Waterboy, it's Coach, it's Mama, and it's all that. And then of course he's got like the hottest girl of all time is just in love with Waterboy on top of all of it. You love it. I think, and this is probably just the bias of Adam Sandler, but you love it just because of the Adam Sandler vibe to it. It is literally if you took Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore and then combined those two characters, dumbed them down even more, and then threw football pads on top of it, it's kind of what you get. So I think with this movie, and this is probably where Mike, I'm assuming, doesn't like it, it's either you love Adam Sandler and ergo you love this movie, or the complete opposite. That's probably how it goes.
He probably hasn't.
Yeah, I should say I can't say I don't like it. I've seen enough of it. I would say like a very long time ago. The thing with me is I just have like literally very slim to no interest in watching it. But had I rewatched it, if I had more time, I would have and could give a fair opinion of it. But hearing you speak so highly of it, and I know, we did a poll asking people to submit their favorite football movies of all time. It definitely got some people who gave this answer. So I think we can certainly put it on the list for consideration. I actually think maybe more people answered this than they did The Longest Yard when it comes to comparing Sandler films. I think
it's because it's an opportunity to watch a movie where you don't have to take yourself so seriously over football. It's a movie where you can just enjoy the premise of football being involved in the movie, and then you can have a good time watching it. I feel like with the other ones, you got to kind of, it's almost like the big name dramatic football movies. They're almost like soap operas for sports fans. It's almost like it's what they're kind of like made to be. And the beauty of this one is like it's just meant to be fun, and I think that's what's enjoyable about it. I think that's why a lot of people like it. Also, when you think about the comedy element of a football movie, I can't even think of another one, or at least one that would even come close to this. And I think that's probably why it's up there on a lot of people's lists, because if you like football and you like, funny movies, it's pretty much your only and best option.
Well, you're right. It's a lot more Rudy than I didn't revisit it, but it's a lot more Rudy than I think I realized when I first watched it when I was younger. Like it's basically spoofing Rudy.
Right. Which in itself, like as we were talking about earlier, or I think you were alluding to it, I think that is a genius idea because the premise of Rudy itself is ridiculous. It's kind of like taking the premise of Rudy and then the premise of the Wahlberg one there and just showing you for what it is. Like, this is absurd. And so because of that, we're going to show you how absurd it is, and we're going to make it exactly that.
No, fair enough. The last movie we got to deal with is called All the Right Moves from 1983. It's the Tom Cruise, Chris Penn high school football movie. Craig T. Nelson plays the coach. I assume you guys did not watch this one?
Did not. I actually never even heard of this.
No, but I was intrigued. I planned on watching it because I think my uncle answered our poll and said this was his favorite. So for that reason alone, I was going to watch it, but then it wasn't like readily available to stream. And I did not rent it. So I did not get around to watching All the Right Moves. But from what I can tell, reading letterboxed reviews of it, it seems like the biggest takeaway that I've read, or the biggest, like, one thing that comes to mind is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dom, because you've watched it, but there's a scene in the movie where you get like a quick glimpse of Tom Cruise's dick.
Yes, that is true.
Oh,
That seems to be like the big takeaway of All the Right Moves, the memorable moment.
Yeah, Tom Cruise does flash his willy in All the Right Moves.
Wow.
It's a very sexual movie. It's
really?
It's not, I don't think it's gonna make the list. But there's definitely things I liked about it. It's very raw movie. It's very, I like the whole, like, every decision you make impacts the next one and impacts your whole life, and you can trap yourself in your small town if you do like X, Y, and Z wrong very easily. Like, you only have 17 years to figure out the rest of your life before you go to college, or you either work at the steel mill. Like, there's no options in the world. It lays all that out in an interesting way, and I like how crude it is because it's kind of realistic for high school and the 80s, probably just how much of a pig everyone is. But the kind of dynamic and the whole problem the movie has between Tom Cruise and the coach is kind of silly, and I hated the ending. It feels like a total cop-out ending for all like the themes they wanted to explore, and then they gave us a happy ending for no reason. So for those reasons, it's not going to make the list.
Okay,
fair enough.
So now that we have gone through everything, we have our final like list for consideration. I tallied it up. We have 13 films. So going through them just really quickly, we have Buffalo 66, Dazed and Confused, Number One, Silver Linings Playbook, The Express, Heaven Can Wait, Rudy, Friday Night Lights, Remember the Titans, We Are Marshall, The Longest Yard, and The Waterboy. So first we need to eliminate 3, right? I think that's where we should begin, and then we could get into ranking them if we want, but we need to whittle it down to a top 10.
All right, I think we should ixnay The Express, and I would vote for combining The Longest Yards.
I'm down with that.
So we'll get rid of The Express. I agree. I feel like we weren't super passionate about that. And, I was going to say you have to choose one or the other, but I can agree on combining. So we'll just say The Longest Yard, and we'll remove the year specificity to it.
Sure.
But we have to get rid of one more.
Okay.
Don't you dare come after Rudy.
I'm fine with keeping Rudy. Could we pick between like Friday Night Lights, Remember the Titans, or We Are Marshall?
You really want to keep Buffalo 66, huh?
I think Buffalo 66 is very...
That's what I want everybody to take from this. Please watch it.
Yeah, I'm fine with keeping Buffalo 66. I did like it.
I think it's a lot more interesting than like any other movie.
Okay, yeah, we can get rid of one between Friday Night Lights, Remember the Titans, and We Are Marshall.
I would vote for We Are Marshall personally, but Z-Bot, do you have a take?
If it came down to that, and is it that and Remember the Titans, you said? Those are the two?
And Friday Night Lights. That's a very tough choice, I think.
Because
I'll leave it to you guys as far as where you stand, because to me, all three of those, I could live without all of them, man. I really could.
No, I could too, but honestly, I could easily say We Are Marshall between Friday Night Lights and Remember the Titans. I think there's,
especially because We Are Marshall came after Remember the Titans, and even though it's a different story, it's more or less, I feel like it's based around the same type of idea in a way.
It's the same type of movie. It's the same type of pull at your heartstrings, inspirational, like this is what life is movie.
We'll get rid of We Are Marshall. Okay, so we have our top 10 now. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to? I mean, it's going to be impossible to rank them all. We're never going to agree on a ranking.
No, I think we.
But maybe
let's try and rank them quick. I think we can.
Oh my God, how is that even possible?
Yeah, that's probably impossible.
All right, I nominate Buffalo 66 for number 10. How about that?
Oh yeah, I'm down with that.
Agreed. Well,
honestly,
agreed.
How about Dazed and Confused number 10?
I think we could come up with a. How about if we each give our own top 5 from the list, and then from the top 5, if we have any that sort of, we'll see like what intersects. How about that?
All right, sure. I would do.
And you don't have to rank them, just your top 5. Like what's your better half of this list of these 10? What's your better half?
I'm going to say Buffalo 66, Heaven Can Wait, number 1, Dazed and Confused, Longest Yard.
Okay. My top half would be Dazed and Confused, Silver Linings Playbook, Heaven Can Wait, Rudy, and Friday Night Lights.
Okay. Top half is Longest Yard, Waterboy, and then out of respect, I think, for what it symbolizes for the overall category, I think you gotta put Rudy up there. You gotta put Remember the Titans up there. And then list off a few more. I'm kind of blanking right now.
So Buffalo 66, Dazed and Confused, number 1, Silver Linings Playbook, Heaven Can Wait, Rudy, Friday Night Lights, Remember the Titans, The Longest Yard, The Waterboy.
I'd put Friday Night Lights, I guess, at the back half of that top half. At the back end of the top half.
Okay. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think all of the films that got 2 votes between all of us were Dazed and Confused, Heaven Can Wait, Rudy, Friday Night Lights, and The Longest Yard. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Because, Dom, you voted for Buffalo 66 and number 1, but neither of us did. I voted for Silver Linings Playbook. Feel like Z-Bot said, Remember the Titans.
Yeah, he said The Waterboy.
Mm-hmm.
The Waterboy. Okay. So now we could more easily rank them, I think, if we start with doing 6 through 10 and then 1 through 5.
All right, let's do that. No, yeah. What if we did number 1 at 10, actually? Let's do number 1 at 10.
Number 1 at 10? Okay. Yeah, that's all right. Number 1 at 10. All right, number 9.
Number 9.
So we're choosing between Buffalo 66, Silver Linings Playbook, Remember the Titans, and The Waterboy.
I would say Remember the Titans.
I gotta put Buffalo 66 there.
I would put the Well, I can't. vote on the Waterboy. I would say I would put Buffalo 66 there too. I'll put
All
Buffalo.
right.
I'd have Remember the Titans ahead of Buffalo 66.
I was gonna try and push it further up, but as long as it's on the list, I guess.
Number 9's fine. You got it.
All right. I guess I would do Remember the Titans 8.
I'd agree with that because I have Silver Linings Playbook ahead of it.
I can get down with that.
So I really can't vote here, but between you guys, would you prefer what should be higher, Silver Linings Playbook or the Waterboy?
I guess we'll put Waterboy ahead of Silver Linings Playbook.
Okay, so Silver Linings at 7, Waterboy at number 6. Okay, so we have number 10, number 1. Number 9, Buffalo 66. Number 8, Remember the Titans. Number 7, Silver Linings Playbook. Number 6, The Waterboy. Now our top 5, we have between Dazed and Confused, Heaven Can Wait, Rudy, Friday Night Lights, The Longest Yard. Now, this is a tough one. Part of me wants to say that Dazed and Confused should be number 5 because I think it's the least football movie out of this remaining 5.
I almost
but it's also the best movie. That's what's tough. It's the best movie, objectively.
Yeah, I'm kind of taking that into consideration. I mean, I'm gonna vote for Rudy number 5 because I think it's the weakest out of this lineup.
I'd have to go with Mike there just because I don't know if you would classify it as football the way you would the other ones.
Yeah, like if you told me like pick your favorite football movie, I would say Rudy ahead of. Even though I think Dazed and Confused is better, I would say Rudy for football movie ahead of Dazed and Confused. Personally.
See, now we're getting into tricky territory here because it's hard for me to say that Friday Night Lights and Rudy should be ahead of Dazed and Confused. I get the football.
Get over it. It's number 5. Get over it.
All right, let's do Friday Night Lights number 4.
Because if we have it higher, people are going to be like, how is Dazed and Confused a top 3 football movie? Because it's borderline. So what do you want to put number 4? Rudy?
Friday Night Lights more than... I feel like Rudy could go ahead of Friday Night Lights.
I'd put Rudy ahead of Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
But I'd also put Friday Night Lights ahead of The Longest Yard, but I'm not going to win that fight, so that's okay.
No, yeah, no way.
Okay.
Do we want to do Heaven Can Wait next?
I'm fighting for Heaven Can Wait
as number 1.
I'd have of the 3 remaining. I'd have it as my number 1. I think.
I can't weigh in. I haven't seen it.
Now, okay, so Dom, between me and you, would you rather? I'd put Heaven Can Wait above Rudy.
No, I will too. Definitely.
Okay, so then we can agree on that.
So Heaven Can Wait number 1, Longest Yard number 2, Rudy number 3.
Well, it depends
that's what I would vote, and I feel like Z-Bot.
Okay, that's what I would vote because I'm not putting The Longest Yard ahead of Heaven Can Wait. So if you and if we've mutually seen both Heaven Can Wait and Longest Yard,
I can agree with putting Heaven Wait as 1 and Longest Yard as number 2.
And Rudy number 3. I'll take Rudy number 3. Rudy coming from just like the real
story of Rudy.
Just like Rudy. I threw my jersey down on this table and I got him to the number 3 spot. You didn't even want him on the list. Look at us go, Rudy. Way to go, Sean Astin.
I do like the list because it truly is, like I said, it's like a lot of compromise, but
it's a great amalgamation.
It's a pretty list. I'm very happy with the list. Okay, so
me too.
Mike, do you want to run through it one more time before we end?
Yeah, I love this. Okay, so do you want me to go 10 to 1 or 1 to 10?
10 to 1. 10 to 1.
10 to 1. Okay, number 10, number 1. Number 9, Buffalo 66. Number 8, Remember the Titans. Number 7, Silver Linings Playbook. Number 6, The Waterboy. Number 5, Dazed and Confused. Number 4, Friday Night Lights. Number 3, Rudy. Number 2, The Longest Yard, both versions. and number 1, Heaven Can Wait. People are gonna be like, "What the fuck?" People are gonna be like, "What's that?"
This is
you got to see it.
This is quite the list, but it is the only list I could truly stand by. Z-Bot, what's your final reaction to the list?
I think it's fair because you guys, the ones that were above where I'd put my choices, you guys had seen and I hadn't, and I'll take your word for it. I'm glad to see The Longest Yard, though, got up right near the top. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to see at the end of this. I wanted to see that right near the top. We got the number 2. And, hey, you two saw the number 1 movie. I haven't. And, Dom, I know you really do enjoy The Longest Yard. So if you got Heaven Can Wait above it, then I got to take your word for it.
Honestly, if it was my personal list, I don't know if that would happen. But it's something I can still get behind.
Yeah.
All great movies. Well, mostly great movies.
They're all gravy movies.
They're all gravy movies. This is the second episode. This is 2 days before the Super Bowl. What's our third episode going to be, Mike? Do we even know?
I feel
Oscars?
like
is it the Oscars?
That might be
the Oscars.
The Oscars might be our 4th episode.
All right. Well, we're gonna have a third episode about something. It's gonna come out in
TBD.
It's going to come out in about 2 weeks. Thanks, Z-Bot, for coming on and talking football movies with us. Like I said, it's been a long time coming, and it turned out even better than I expected. I will put his info in the bio of the video or whatever. You can find him at Z-Bot Tweets on Twitter and a bunch of other places. Thanks again, buddy.
My pleasure, fellas. This was great. I seldomly get to hop on here and do things that aren't completely dedicated to the Bills, so it was refreshing and a lot of fun. And the one I got a couple of these that I took away from that I haven't seen it that I'm definitely gonna go check out.
No, yeah,
and you also
and I won't be rewatching Buffalo 66.
You also spent 2 hours of your life that you will never get back. But the Bills, in one way, shape, or form, did make the top 10.
You're right, and listen, I'm used to doing that surrounding football, giving up a bunch of my life that I'll never get back. You know what I mean? I'm used to that. At least this was 2 hours and not weeks upon weeks. And there's no sad ending here for me, by the way. There's no like depressing ending to this. I can walk away with my head held high.
Movies are a lot less commitment than football. I've been telling you guys this.
I don't know, though. The way you guys treat them, though, I think it's way more of a commitment. There's so much more to digest.
But the thing is, when one movie, like, when
I'm being committed to both, like me. It's not easy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be a real challenge.
Mike's into a lot. Mike watches
I
soccer and lacrosse and football. You watch
try
baseball,
to keep
Mike?
up.
Watch baseball?
I do. Not a ton, but I do. I follow the Yankees.
Football's your main though?
Probably soccer at this point.
Oh, really?
Honestly.
Okay.
But I stick with the Vikings, week in, week out.
Yep.
But football generally is a shorter season than soccer.
Sure.
I mean, soccer's like August to May.
Yeah, it feels like soccer's always going
football
on.
September to February. So
right. Well, yeah, shit, you got something for every time of the season. That's nice.
Literally, yeah. Love to play golf. Big golfer. That's my summer there. But
love it.
That's end of this podcast turning all about me and my hobbies.
What's the next one? What are you doing next?
I don't know yet. We got 3 more minutes. We can just milk this 3 minutes. The podcast is over, but this is still gonna happen.
Did we do an official sign off? Was that your official sign off? Like,
I don't think you did do that, buddy.
No, this is all gonna be in it. The last 3 minutes.
Okay.
We're gonna talk until the end. That's what I decided, actually.
Okay.
We have this idea for like an ultimate Oscars draft where we can draft anything nominated in the 100+ years of the Oscars. And
I don't think it's been 100 years.
What is it?
I think the Oscars
it's like 80 something, isn't it?
It's 90 something, I think.
Wow.
But it hasn't been 100.
So we're gonna
do something. That's a lot of fucking movies.
We're gonna do something where we draft like best picture, best actor.
Yeah, I mean it's all personal, right? Like it comes down to like what we want and what we've seen.
How many picks would you each get? You think?
We would have to figure out our like categories, basically.
Yeah. So for instance, I started right for a sneak preview of this episode. I started drafting like last week for the best foreign film category.
Mm-hmm.
And for that one, let me see if I have to find the sheet here.
Should it be winners only or all nominations?
I think all nominations, because then it also gives us the opportunity to say, like, you know, they fucked this up and they chose the wrong winner, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like so for foreign film, I think like my nominees were like Parasite, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Another Round, and then my winner is going to be whatever Italian film I pick. There's so many great options, but I think I'll probably end up going with La Vita Bella, but we'll see. I have to really think over that one. But like the Italians, I could fill 10 films with just the Italians. Fuck all the other countries. Like Italy. Talk about film.
You could do it if you wanted to.
No, because I think like that's the beauty of that category is that you can only nominate one film per country. So I think that should be our rule. We can only pick one per country. That's why it's a tough choice for me to only pick one Italian film.
I
right,
can't think of one Italian film I've ever seen.
Now we have less than a minute, so you have to have some official sign off before this shit just ends.
No, it's gonna cut off.
Oh my god, we're gonna lose. We have like 5 listeners. It's gonna
but at
like
this point,
shit.
they know it's just gonna cut off. I've established that. I already kind of signed off. I said we're gonna have a new episode in a couple of weeks, and we'll see. I don't need to tell them what it's about. I don't know. But this is the best. This is the best episode out of the 2 we've done.
Wow. That's really saying something.
It's gonna be a long one though.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to see Infinity Pool right after this, so I will let you know my thoughts.
Oh yeah, maybe we can do a little like recorded 5-minute thing and post it.